and everyone's present. Just a quick note, we are being videoed tonight. It's not live, but David Miller will put it up. So just to know it's not live tonight.
So we can edit out.
We can.
Let's stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I don't know how, but we can.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The district vision statement: through intentionally designed systems, Haven School District is committed to creating a positive and inclusive culture, focusing on academic and personal success to ultimately be the district of choice for staff, students, and our communities. Okay, we'll need to approve the agenda. Does anybody have anything to add, or do we have a motion to approve?
Move that we approve the agenda.
All in favor, right hand? 7-0. Okay, citizens open forum. Nobody signed up?
No.
Okay, recognition and presentations. None tonight. Consent agenda. You'll find the financials.
Our ending cash for the month of March is $5,943,413.02. We had a check that was over $10,000 to Benny Keith for $36,718.41. And then we had one to the City of Haven for $11,303.84 for utilities.
And the thing says bond payment and interest. I assume that's just a
I
typo.
switched it out. If you go back into the drive, it's fixed.
We got that today. We just made a mistake on the switch order was like,
Okay. Anybody have any more questions for Chrissy? Principal and director reports can be found in the minutes in our drive, and we'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions for the directors or questions over the minutes? Jessica, Kevin, Cole?
On the fridge that went out for food service, can we not get like a thermometer that will alert, like send email alerts for?
Christian, anything about those?
We have, I don't know, we ever looked into it. I mean, we have it on our system that'll show it went out, but I don't know that we.
We'll look into it. Absolutely.
Okay.
You were able to get that up and running, I know, which is
Yeah. I updated it in my drive today, actually. I was trying to wait to see what it costs, but never got it.
All good.
Okay. Gifts and grants?
No.
None. Resignations? Brandon Pate and Jared Kilpatrick at High School Stuco. Okay, I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Have a second? Chris? First? Nicole? All in favor, right hand? 7-0. Okay, moving on to the action and discussion items. Haven Grade School presentation.
Yeah, so we'll bring up Morrison Born Trigger to kind of talk through. We've been kind of setting this up for the last couple of months of like what's it look like. Haven Grade School going into the next year with some of the things that their feedback they've received and working with their staff. So I'll turn it over to them. They're going to kind of talk what it looks like and be able to answer any questions that you may have. And if we aren't able to answer them, we'll get the answer for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, just thank you guys for the opportunity to present on some things that have been in the works as we, again, finish out this year strong, but then also plan to get rolling into next year. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Down.
I did. It's going down on yours, but not up there. Why is that? Oh, there we go. Delay. So just to, there we go. Just start here again. I know we went over this at the beginning of the year, but obviously at Haven Grade School, our bottom line is student learning, student outcomes, student growth. But the way we do business is through this collective identity that we've developed here. So at Haven Grade School, our identity is grounded in kindness, respect, and responsibility. By fostering a positive and supportive environment, we empower students to grow into confident, compassionate, and resilient leaders with the integrity to shape a better future. So again, all the things we're going to talk about today, we look at it through this lens here. So without further ado, we will dive right in. Give it a sec to catch up to Craig's computer. There we go. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and kind of the main thing we've been trying to navigate this year, is how are we going to fill our spaces in our building? So this is a conversation that we started with our building leadership team way back in the fall. Back, I believe, in our November building leadership team meeting, just knowing that at Haven Grade School, we have 22 available spaces that can reuse classroom spaces. So our conversations started with our building leadership team are, what are our priorities? Knowing that, every time we get feedback from our staff, every time we have staff meetings, things like that, some common themes come up. And one of those big common themes is having more of a systemic program for student behaviors to add, some tools to our toolboxes and just have more structure, more of a system in place for that. So we're going to talk a lot more about that recovery room, that BIST, as we go along today. But also prioritizing things like having a sensory room. We knew collectively that was a need with bringing that adaptive program over this year. It will greatly help out those kids, but also our sensory room is going to be able to serve all of our gen ed students that have that need. We have kind of a designated space this year, and we've already seen some of the impacts that can have on kids. Couple things when we look at our grade levels and how that ended up shaking out. We're going with 2 sections of kindergarten and first grade next year, and kind of how these decisions were made, again, starting as a building leadership team, kind of gauging, where are their priorities. But then ultimately what we did was we ended up inviting all of our staff and just kind of having, a stand-up staff meeting of, okay, again, here's where we're at, here's kind of what our projected numbers look like next year, and again, balancing those priorities with, reasonable class sizes, but then at the same time being able to build in a recovery room, build in a sensory room, and give them their own designated spaces. So what we landed on when working with all these grade level teams, 2 sections of kindergarten, 2 sections of first grade, 3 sections of second, and 3 sections of third. And then when we moved to 4th, 5th, and 6th, we ended up landing on 3 sections of 4th grade, 3 sections of 6th grade, and 2 sections of 5th grade. And a couple things I want to point out there. 4th through 6th grade next year, we're going to move to more of a departmentalized model. So what that means is that instead of every one of those teachers teaching all of the different content areas, they're going to more so specialize in certain content areas. So you'll have a math specialist, you'll have a reading specialist, a science and social studies specialist. A lot of the work we're doing with like the state assessments now and interim assessments and mini assessments, it really will allow us to just dive deeper in those content areas and utilize those tools and those resources, again, more effectively and more in depth. With 5th grade there, working with that team, because that is the one that we did end up going with 2 sections on. I want to shout out that 5th grade team. They truly see the benefits that bringing in a BIST program is going to take things off of their plate in terms of, again, student behaviors and just having more support and things like that. Prioritizing if that 5th grade class is a little bit larger than maybe 4th or 6th, on our end, being strategic with how we prioritize para support and things like that to make sure that those teachers are supported. And then of course we'll have our adaptive classroom again next year. We're looking at moving that. So it's currently when you walk into grade school, it's right there, that first classroom on the left. we are wanting to move that down to either one of our open kindergarten rooms or open first grade rooms, just recognizing the need for that program to have a bathroom in their space. I think that would be very beneficial and helpful there. So that's kind of how we are planning to split up our 22 spaces next year.
And just to know that this is in terms, and we'll talk more about this when we get to the out-of-district stuff, that this is kind of like enrollment now and also kind of our history that we'll pick up some more now. If we have 30 extra kindergartners show up in enrollment, then I think that conversation changes this, okay? So just to be mindful. Will that happen? Probably not, but just that it could, and I think that changes the needs of the building, just to make sure everybody's tracking that.
And I would say again, we can't predict the future, but I don't anticipate that happening. I know this year, that's kind of the boat we're in with our smaller kindergarten classes, is I think we expected some more to show up in the fall. But I think just, with how far along our early childhood programs and pre-K, I think it's easier to track those kids and kind of know who's out there. Again, we don't know, we could have 30 kids show up like Craig said, but if so, we'll, adapt as we go and make sure that our plan is going to set our building up for the most success throughout that year.
Is there a recovery room now?
There's not. So that was kind of a big priority as we've navigated these last few months is number one, is that, what are our priorities? Do we want to for sure have that? Do we, because, we could have split 5th grade again and then not had that recovery room. So no, we don't currently have that this year, and I think that will be, as Darby, she's going to get into a little bit more of the details on this. I think that'll be a game changer, and support teachers and support students and just have, again, that structure and that system in place. So when you do have student behaviors and things like that, it's not all punitive. It's like BIST is designed to help kids learn and to help kids develop skills. So having that structure in place, again, I think is going to be game changer, and then having a designated space so that we can truly ensure that we're investing in that program and that it's set up for success.
Okay, it might take a minute to load. So we'll go a little bit deeper into the BIST when it loads. And Brian, I mean, you may have heard, we have been utilizing my office as more of like a regulation room, but it is different than recovery, so I can get into that a little bit deeper as we go. But you hear us say BIST a lot, so I thought it would be important for you guys to know what BIST stands for. So it's Behavior Intervention Support Team. And the first thing that I have up there, it's never okay to be hurtful and it's never okay to be disruptive. Those were two of the main things that the school we went to visit that has implemented BIST for years. They're a very big BIST school. Those are two of the things that they really stand by. So if you're thinking about when a child might need to be removed, or you're thinking about the reactive and consequence side of BIST, those are kind of two of the things you look at. But BIST is also just as much about being proactive, so you can look at those goals for life, which is also part of the philosophy and also a major component to BIST. So we want to be teaching, but we also know the reality that we have to react, and there does have to be consequences. So we're hoping this gives us that common language and a common framework for responding to behavior, and hopefully the goal would be that all teachers have the same language and same plan. We both have the same plan. Our substitutes would know, our parents would know, and so we can all kind of be on the same page. So.
And we'll get in a little bit more into what that training looks like and entails here.
What we're going to look at when we talk about data and what we're going to track to see, the effectiveness of BIST and if it's helping our school. The main thing that we're going to look at is office discipline referrals, and potentially there will be other things that we look at, but this will be the main thing. So we included our current office discipline referral data. So that top graph there, that's what we've tracked throughout the year, and you can see it by grade level. So if you're curious if there are grade levels that have more office discipline referrals than others. The bottom pie graph there is if a student is on a 504 IEP or if they are not. And I think that's important to share so we know that this is all kids and this is a general ed issue that we need to address. It's not that an IEP or a behavior plan through SPED that we're looking at. And then on the right there, you'll see we mark, when we have office discipline referrals, we will mark when it comes to us. So I think that it's kind of far away, but I think that the most we see is disruptive behavior. And then I think defiance, disrespect, defiance towards school staff, unsafe physical contact, so, kind of to give you guys an idea of where we're at. And we will start looking at tracking and adding things to our office discipline referrals that we find helpful as we implement this. And I think it's also important to note that the school we visited, they shared their office discipline data for like the last 7 years with us. And they did have an increase at first. I don't necessarily anticipate that that will for sure happen, but it definitely could happen. And then it has gone down. I think they had 300 and some at the beginning, and then to now, like 7 years later, they had maybe 135 for the whole year. So I'm excited to see what that ends up looking like for us.
What percentage, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What percentage of students have IEPs?
In our building,
I think if you include speech only, I think it's roughly 50%. I think if you take out the speech ones, it's somewhere between that 20 to 30%. I'd be happy to get you the exact number.
That's okay, I was just trying to get an idea. I mean, it seems there's no real correlation at all.
Yeah.
My question was, sorry, this is super like technical, but what's the difference between like disruptive behavior and disruption of learning environment?
So a lot of times, like when I'm going through doing those, it's not like I don't just pick one, I pick all the ones that could be considered. So if it's disruptive, a lot of times it's also defiance, it's also disrespect a lot of times.
Okay, that was my next question.
and it
Yeah.
could be like, maybe it was in the hallway, so it wasn't really disrupting the learning environment, but it was a disruptive behavior somewhere that wasn't the
Okay.
learning environment.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
So when we went to visit the school that has implemented VIST, they had a really cool presentation that they shared with us. And they shared several things that they've worked on, so they might have spent a whole year implementing this, or a whole year implementing this. And there were several components that we already had successfully implemented well in our building, so I wanted to share that with you guys because I think that's super important. So the first one being our Wildcat Way, which is our common expectations. So that took that school building a whole year to do, and we already have that in place. Of course, it's something we're always looking at refining and revisiting. So, because we want to utilize this, we don't just want to slap it up on the wall and then say we have it. We want to actually utilize it. So our goal is to be rewarding kids for when they are following those expectations, and then also for staff to be using that language when we're having issues in those common places. And so we're excited for some improvements next year that we have for that.
And then one other element that we already have in place, and I know when Darby and our vision team group went up to tour the school, this is one of the things that stood out to them. Our Wildcat Den, so a big part of this, and really just a positive school culture, is ensuring that students feel positively connected to as many adults in the building and as many other students as possible. So our Wildcat Dens get together once a month to do fun team building, social, variety. We had Make a Difference Day this past month, a variety of activities. But what that does is it gets students with someone who's not their everyday teacher. So just gets them building, again, a positive relationship with another trusted adult and peers in other grade levels. So teachers will have kids from all 7 of our grade levels, and then they stay with those DENS leaders throughout their time at the grade school. One other thing to touch on, we do relationship mapping already. So that is, our counselors meet with every student on their caseload. We go through our entire staff, their name, their picture, and we ask kids, who do you feel, that you have a positive relationship? Who do you feel safe going to if you have good news to share, if you have bad news to share? And then we monitor, which staff members get selected, that sort of thing. Are there kids that don't feel that they have strong connections with staff members and things like that? So then we can be intentional about putting interventions in place to, again, get those kids some positive connections. And the more positive connections kids have, the more they're going to want to be at school, the more they're going to want to behave and try their best and push themselves. And then one last component that we already have in place, and this is something we started this school year, with our Character Strong Social Emotional curriculum, each month focuses on a different character trait. If you get my call out each week, you know, I try to introduce each one each new month. But at the end of that month, we have teachers and staff members nominate students who have truly exemplified those traits that month, and then we have an all-school assembly where we then recognize students for exemplifying them and for getting nominated. So right now, our character trait of the month is courage, and then the final one we will finish up on next month will be creativity. So again, as Darby kind of alluded to, these were all things that when the school they went and visited, I mean, they spent a year just getting, their Wildcat Way up and running, a year just getting dens up and running, those sorts of things. So I do feel like we're already ahead of the game on those components. Then I'm gonna turn it over to Darby here, so she'll talk about our priorities for next year with this.
So our goals for BIS, because we do already have some of those foundational pieces, building-wide pieces implemented, this is kind of our goal that we want to focus on. So it would be more of that response system for how we respond to behaviors in our building. So our goal would be to implement safe seats in the classroom. And that picture that I included there is a picture from the safe seat in a classroom. And ultimately, the safe seat is a tool that the teachers can use if a student is not following directions where they're at. So maybe they need some kind of a change to help them, but they're not missing out on that core content. They're not being pulled away from the classroom. They're still right there, and then they have to process with the teacher on what they did before they can get out of the safe seat and back to their seat. So that's a really nice component of them reflecting and working with that teacher on how they can avoid that. The next component past the safe seat is a buddy room, so we'd like to have buddy rooms throughout the building, and even the specials teachers had buddy rooms, because just because it's music or art or PE doesn't mean you're not gonna have an issue or library, whatever it might be. So we'd like to implement buddy rooms, and then the last more, I don't know.
Kind of that tier 3.
Yeah,
that
tier
next
3
step.
would be that recovery room, which is where they would walk you for help, and somebody would come and get them that's working the recovery room, or they can escort a child to the recovery room. And the recovery room, you're required to do quite a few things to make it back, and you would then transition back to the buddy room, safe seat, and then back to your normal seat. But you would have to make up what you were supposed to be doing. So it's not like you just get out of class. You still have to do math if that's what you were acting up in and being disruptive to the learning environment. You're still expected to go do math. And I did mention like the common language, and we want that common response from everyone in our building, that people know what to expect when there are behaviors. But also we want to help increase our teachers' toolboxes. We have, a variety of teachers that have different experiences and different education. So some teachers might have a toolbox of classroom management that's just overflowing, and they handle it all within, and they have a lot of ideas, and they try the next thing. And then we have some teachers that don't have that toolbox, and so it might look like you need to do this or you're gonna go to the office. And so there's really nothing in between. So we're kind of hoping to help them create that in between.
And again, keep it focused on, again, we're a school, we gotta help kids learn, we gotta educate them, and behavior is a component of that, just like math and reading. So I think that's my favorite thing about it is every component is educational. I mean, the safe seat, if they get sent there, there's a process they have to work to reflect on it and learn from it. If that doesn't work, buddy room, recovery room, same thing.
And I was just gonna comment, like Brian had mentioned earlier, we've been utilizing my office as a regulation room, but it still would be very different because a regulation room might be needed if the child is escalated, but then once they're calm enough, they could go to the recovery room to do the things they were supposed to do, type of thing. But the recovery room would have multiple desks in it, and it wouldn't really be the place for them to regulate.
And then it would take away, if there's other kids in there learning, doing their work, it would take away from that. So I do think it's important to have both.
So how will the buddy rooms work with, like departmentalized? Are there any concerns that if a kid just wants to be in the other room all the time, they're just gonna act up in whatever class they are in, so they go be in the other class?
I think that's a really good point. In the younger grades that aren't departmentalized, it's nice because you should be in a classroom that's also receiving core. Like if
Right.
you're doing math, you should be still hearing math.
Right.
But we haven't really thought about that or problem solved it quite yet, but I think because you'll have to make up what you miss, eventually they would figure out that it's not as enjoyable as they would think.
And I think too, we're gonna have, one PLC meeting a month designated to really digging in and problem solving whatever issues we did have that past month. So certainly that would be something we look at is, if we notice one kid is constantly going to the buddy room and it's not, we're not decreasing in that, problem solving, okay, does that kid need to have a different buddy room that he doesn't intentionally want to go to, sort of thing. So I think it's a case by case basis, but I do think that's a good question, and I think in those monthly meetings, that's where we would problem solve those things and come up with solutions.
So that was my question, like what determines what their buddy room is? It can be different for each student, or?
I would think
So part of which, Brandon was getting ready to go into this, but there's a BIST 101 conference, which has been recommended to us to start with. We did bring Marty in to meet with all of our staff and talk about the philosophy of BIST. And it was a really enjoyable day, and I think there was a lot of great momentum and everyone's excited. But the BIST 101 conference is a week long. So there will be a team of us going. There's actually 9 people who have committed, and they're volunteering their week. Now granted, we're registering them and we'll provide transportation and lodging, but they're giving up a week of their summer because they believe in this and they want to go. So our goal is that week-long conference, they're gonna help us problem solve these things and be ready to implement them and roll out.
Are these mostly teachers or?
For the most part, we have asked some paras to go along. We don't have
Both counselors.
both counselors
us.
going, both of us are going, and then mainly teachers. We'd love to be able to take a para or two if they're interested. So we're kind of still working on finalizing that. But yeah, and then the goal would be, you know, have the BIST 101, that week-long conference, and then as a team, so that would be our vision team, start planning for August, you know, what this is gonna look like, how we're gonna roll it out, what the ongoing support's gonna look like. We're bringing the BIST training team back in August to provide some more training to our entire staff to make sure we're all on the same page, we're ready to go. Some of the other ongoing support, what that will look like next year. We will have once a month Zoom check-ins with the BIST implementation team, just to, again, check in, problem solve, make sure that we're aligned with what we're supposed to be doing, making sure that we're doing it well. And then once a quarter, they will come in and meet with us as a building. So it would probably be a PLC day where we would go around, check in with each grade level, check in with our vision team, and just, you know, again, what do we need to problem solve, what support. Don't have all the answers right now because I think a lot of that will come through that BIST 101 week-long conference in July, so that's at the end of July. But then it's, you know, it's going to depend on what are the needs as we move forward. So surveys to staff, check-ins, again, PLC meetings, having monthly vision team meetings, and just, again, ensuring that we get it started well, but then, you know, it's a sustainable thing that we can keep going over time and keep refining and improving.
And I'll just add to that, Nicole, just kind of on the terms of where the buddy room and who gets to pick. I think as they develop this, we're gonna find the number of kids that need a unique buddy room are smaller than we think. You know, in my experience, 5th graders had to go into the 2nd grade classroom sometimes if they couldn't go into their 5th, you know, and so they don't appreciate that. I mean, that's not as fun over there, those kinds of things. And so if they can't, you know, like what Darby said, where hopefully they can go to a same grade because they can still hear the core and those kind of things. So I think there's always going to be a unique situation that they said they meet about and they figure out how to make it
Yeah,
work
and
for
so we'll try to roll out, you know, we'll make the best plan and roll it out, and then there will be those situations where it's not gonna be perfect, it's not gonna work. So our vision team will work more on that, like, overall system of BIST in our building, but then those PLCs once a month will be with that grade band, very intimate and more student-based. So the school that we visited also let me zoom in for a day, some of their PLCs that they had, and they actually have a template, like a behavior plan, and they have things that they try, and they have a list of different things and like interventions to try with students, so.
And that's what I was gonna say, I mean, so we'll be looking at that data at least once a month, so if we notice Johnny's he's been in that buddy room 6 times this past month, again, I don't know if 6 is a lot or a little, we'll see how it goes. But then it would be, well, let's problem solve, let's dig deeper, why is that, you know, what interventions can we put in place, whether that's a check-in, check-out intervention, or small group, or, you know, our counselors have a variety of those tier 2 interventions that we already use, but then we can be more intentional with this data that we look at each month.
So who will staff those rooms?
It'll be our classified staff, which will be paras, so we'll make sure that they're fully trained, and we'll just build it into we have a para schedule this year, so we'll just kind of build it into that. But it'll be supported by counselors, and it'll be supported by administrators, but in terms of actually staffing it on the day-to-day, it'll be them. Now there might be times, hopefully there's a lot of times, where there aren't kids in that recovery room. I mean, it's really an as-needed thing, so then we will build it to where, you know, if I'm supposed to be covering the recovery room during this time, but there's no one in here, I'll have classrooms that I push into to go support, whether that's with academics or with BIST, that type of thing, just to make sure we don't want people sitting there if they're not needed,
Right.
type of deal.
So will we be hiring additional paras then?
No, I think we have the staff in place now to be able to successfully make this work. So it'll just
Of course, we would take however many pairs we can get, but
But,
we will make it pay.
no, I
It's
think,
just a matter of prioritizing and shuffling.
and we're fortunate enough now to be, you know, I've been working at school, we don't have any instructional aids, so, just to be able to have those now, and just make sure we're utilizing them as best as possible, and I think, yeah, I don't think it would be an issue of working this in.
And that takes us into the last thing. We just wanted you guys to kind of understand when we talk about PLCs, and that's something that Haven Grade School has done a really good job implementing and really has in place well, which I'm really thankful for as somebody new coming in. And so what that currently looks like is 1 day a week, 40 minutes for each grade level. It's facilitated by Corey and Braden and myself. And this year we've done a good job of at least telling them, being very intentional about what we work on, but our goal next year is to have more of a itinerary or a plan schedule for the whole year. And what we would hope to do would be 1 PLC a month dedicated to looking at math and reading data. So that's how we determine our acceleration groups, which is a whole hour of each grade level's time, because we have 30 minutes for math, 30 minutes for reading. So it's really important that we're using that time well, so it's most effective. And classified needs, and then we would use one of those PLCs a month for BIS, which is where we would focus more on that behavior, look at those individual students' needs, and refine what is or isn't working well. And then ideally we'd like to have a PLC a month where that content just has time to plan together. Whether they need our support or not could be up to them. And then some other topics that we do during that time would be program and curriculum support. Maybe we might need iReady to come in. And so we have this time carved out where we could just tell the trainer, if you can come on this day, and then you can see each grade level, which we've already done one time this year. We also bring in our MTSS trainers and have them support, which they support core and acceleration time, but it's just nice to be able to have them meet very intimately with each grade band. We've been utilizing it a lot to make the most out of our interim assessments and prep for those state assessments. And then something that's our goal would be try to figure out how to have some SPED collaboration. That's something that we don't have right now system-wide, would be like a gen ed and SPED collaboration. So we were trying to problem solve how we could make that work.
So then, kind of already, wait, can I get back to this?
Yeah,
Okay, I was gonna say, I think you're good.
I already covered that.
We tried to give you guys lots of information and hopefully answer some of the questions you might have along the way, but that's really all we have, so certainly want to turn it over. And if you guys have any other additional questions for us, be happy to answer.
I have one last question. As far as talking about like employee involvement or staff members' involvement, do you have other staff members like secretaries or the school nurse or lunchroom people, any of those individuals that are involved in like the conference, or are they regularly involved in training and those kinds of things?
Yeah, excellent question. So we won't be taking any of them, well, at least we haven't asked, we could, up to the BIST 101 this summer, but they'll certainly be involved when we're bringing those things back to staff. I mean, that's one of the big components of BIST, is everyone in the school is aligned. You know, it's not just these kids or this teacher's students. I mean, all the students are all of our students.
And I think our goal too would be, we're taking around 10 is what our goal has kind of been budget-wise for this year, and then if it goes well, we could send more next year. And they also have other conferences that you can take your teams to as you progress through BIST.
But you're absolutely correct. I mean, we need our secretaries, our custodians, I mean, everyone, food services staff, I mean, everyone has to have that common language and be on the same page. So yeah, what that will look like is when we come back in August, you know, getting as many of those people in that room for that training as possible, and then just involving them along the way. I mean, they're just as important part of that team as anybody. So, great question.
Thank you.
Questions? 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 Okay, any more questions? Thank you, appreciate it.
They'll be back probably around this time next year to touch it, highlight the things, but also they'll have reports between, you know, the beginning of year and this time as well to check in.
We're ready for number 2. Megan, you're up.
Corey, oh, you want me to come? Okay.
Yeah, so as I'm bringing this up, we said about is this time last year that we came to the board and to
to transition one of the FTE that we had or hadn't filled at that time into this instructional facilitator role. Because to help support teachers and the hard work we're asking them to do and those kinds of things, and said that we'd come back at this time and give you all an update. Certainly another position we want to carry forth, and they're going to speak as to why, but then they'll be able to answer any questions. So I'll turn it over to these amazing ladies. Go ahead and down button. Slow, just relax. Oh.
Okay, hi guys. This has been a lot of fun. Very different world for me in my kindergarten land. In a lot of ways, and in some ways, not very different at all. So, we just prepared a kind of an overview of what this year has looked like. So, starting with roles and responsibilities, these are some of the main things that we highlighted that I've been able to hop in and do. So, you can see them all there. I'm just going to highlight and kind of speak to a couple of those. My new teacher work has been probably my favorite. I think that's no secret, I've told everyone that. So I really enjoyed working with new teachers and supporting them in giving them the things that they need. I'm kind of a good go-between between them and their admin, or even Megan, if there's login issues, if there's curriculum issues. I've been lucky enough to work with some of them even, more deeply in their lesson design or behavior problem solving, things like that. So I've really enjoyed my new teacher work. Let's see, POCs have been a lot of fun too, so that has been nice. Scheduled, I know that every Thursday I'm at the grade school. It doesn't always take the full time that we have scheduled, but it is a really good way to get face-to-face with every teacher in that building. And a lot of things come up in those conversations maybe that they wouldn't have sought out help for, but in those conversations they can say, like, as we're talking about data or as we're talking about preparing for an upcoming assessment, things they might want to do in their intervention groups, I can say, let me do that, I'll work on that this week. And so,
and I'll say that's a place that she's done a really great job. When she goes to those PLCs, and she doesn't always know what she's stepping into, but naturally she hears about the problems when she goes to those things. And so she's done a really great job of hearing those problems and helping them problem solve and bringing them solutions back, going and finding, a program that can fill a gap for them, or, hey, you need some more fluency work, let me go find it for you, let me make your copies for you, let me bring it to you, just to take one more thing off of your plate. And so I think she's done a really great job there, just filling in gaps, helping them where there's holes for them.
yeah, that's been a lot of fun. And so it'll come up in a minute, but we do have plans of getting PLCs going more intentionally at middle school and high school next year. So I look forward to that because then I can get in rooms with those teachers as well and be able to help there. Which other one did we want to talk about? My ESOL leave, I was actually doing that while teaching kindergarten, but this has been really nice. So what that looks like is with the help of Megan, but I can assess our ESOL kids on their CALPA exam and write their IOPs. But I was way more intentional about how I scored those. I didn't have to get a 7 to be out of the classroom for that time. So been able to do that more intentionally and just do a better job of that. So that's been really nice.
And then also provide ideas to teachers that are working with those English learners to help support them in their classrooms. That maybe that's not always their specialty, so.
Okay, so we emailed this out as sort of ideas that teachers can use when they can use this to schedule us for support. So this went out to them, it's a form, they can click it, comes back to me, and then I can follow up with them. But it's nice to give them ideas. Maybe they didn't have that idea, maybe they didn't know that was something that we could offer them. So that went out. We've now got it into, I think it's in the grade schools weekly, that teachers can click it. And I'm not sure if it's in the high schools yet, but that was a good idea that Megan had come up. Like, put it in those weekly things that teachers are reading anyway so that they can find it easier. But we've shared that with teachers a couple of times. So kind of the menu of things that we offer. We would go off script and offer other things as well, but those were kind of the main ones.
Can I ask a question? How are you doing?
No, boy, yeah.
How many teachers use that? Or how many requests have you gotten? I mean, is it
So I do think way more things have come up in face-to-face conversations.
That is what,
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's nice, I think, because maybe they didn't know, it could potentially bring up like, oh gosh, I didn't know that she could do that. But it's been way more from PLCs and just hallway conversations, hey, come see me later, so, yeah.
And I think we need to hit this more with, like, our new teachers at the beginning of the year. We didn't have this quite ready to roll out at the beginning of the school year, but we did one-on-ones last summer with all of our new staff, just to be able to go through and say, these are all the things that she can support you on. Don't hesitate to sign up, especially because she's building that relationship from day one with those new staff. I think this will be a good tool for them.
So this one, I tracked my time this year, just kind of daily, what my days looked like, and Megan is so smart, she can turn that right into a chart. So she did that. We can see that the most of that falls under the teacher support category. Some other big ones, PLCs, so district meetings, I would say a lot of that is PLCs. Some of that would be like district leadership meetings as well, but majority of that is the weekly PLCs. And quite a lot of PD. I don't expect that would maybe be as much next year, but I have taken every opportunity to like hit a training, go to things. I've visited some other instructional facilitators in other roles around our area, and that was a lot of fun. I would look for more opportunities to do things like that. So I don't know that PD would be as high next year, but I got to as many things as I could this year for sure. Okay, so one of the things that we've done this year is our late start strategies. We would present on these, Tara and myself would present on these on late starts. We chose some strategies that had a high effect size, that research showed made a really big impact in classrooms. We also chose things that we felt like were broad enough to serve all of our classrooms. You know, lots of need there from kindergarten all the way up to our, seniors, doing what seniors do, I don't know. So that is what we focused on this year. We'd asked them then each time to do a variety of things. Sometimes that was, we would come in and I would see the thing being tried, jigsaw, maybe that's not something they would typically do, so they would give it a shot. We could debrief. We got down, these last couple of ones were different. So note-taking model was something that Tara did at the high school. They even just shot her their notes by the end of whatever they had tried. We did opportunities to respond at the grade school, and same thing. It was as simple as I gave them a pinch card and went in and kind of showed them how to try it. So they've evolved through the year. We have noticed there are certain times of the year where it's a lot. December was a lot. We didn't need to add to the plate. I'm noticing right now testing time is a lot. So that looks different. Next year we will modify it even further, and maybe we'd like to focus on one or two all year and be very intentional. And that way it's not just try it once, it's try it with a deeper level of understanding. But the idea is to just build their impact. These are things that we know work well for all learners. So that is the idea of that. I do think we will pivot and we will adjust for sure.
On that part, Corey, who would come in and watch it? What's that?
So
that process looks like?
that gets sent out. They have 4 options to choose from. Myself, Darby, Mr. McCarthy, and Tara. And sometimes we've had people choose, I think even like Mr. McCarthy in the grade school, or Darby chose to go to a high school, and I've done both. So they can choose who they want, if they want an admin coming in, or if they want.
And there were some options for some of these too. Like, I'm not really quite ready to do that, but will you come show me how to do it in my classroom, or will you come cover my class so I can go watch somebody else do it? So those were some options too on some of these strategies. So trying to be flexible with people and knowing that everyone's at a different comfortability with these.
Yeah.
So.
Effective feedback is the one we've kind of just drawn out for the last couple of months because it's hard and scheduling wise. And that one, we've offered them an opportunity to go watch a colleague. I would come cover their space. They could go watch another teacher of their choosing with the lens of like, how are they providing feedback to their students? Or just to enjoy watching someone, a colleague, teach their class and get into their classroom. Because you can, learn a lot from doing that. It's always a good thing to go into someone else's learning space.
So as she mentioned, we'd like to really just focus on maybe 1 or 2 of these next year. Probably not these, some different, maybe, I don't know. But then also, one thing that I know Tara would really like to do is get our departments together to be able to go watch each other teach at the middle school, high school. So social studies teachers to be able to go watch each other, science teachers to be able to go watch each other, and then have time. We're gonna have PLC time built into that schedule next year to be able to talk about it, what they saw, just because they don't get that time, middle school, high school, like they do at the elementary. So.
And we'll probably survey teachers. What are you wanting? What are you wanting support on? What do you want this to look like, and how can we help make this meaningful? So we plan to do that.
So it won't be structured kind of how it is now, where it's kind of a mandatory once a month, and then whatever they're doing may or may not fit into what they're teaching at that time. But if you focus on less, you're saying there might be more.
Yeah, we plan to focus on less strategies. I mean, as you can see by our participation, it wasn't mandatory, or we wouldn't have a 35% participation rate in November, but I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, so you can make a case that teacher clarity is important every day and every
Oh, yeah.
lesson. So we try to choose things that do fit, but there's definitely opportunities to do that better. So yeah, we'll take some feedback and we'll see how we can make that work.
And they had, when we introduced these, they had a month or 6 weeks to do it. So it wasn't like, hey, we introduced this strategy, you need to do it today. It was, find a time in the next 4 to 6 weeks, let us know when you're doing it, and we'll come see you.
I think understanding too that it is not evaluative. Like, I am there to support, I'm not your evaluator. I've been really intentional to not be leaving remarks that might be, hurtful, or, so I keep it really positive and try to leave that, the room, better vibes than I, walked into. That being said, it is a weird feeling. Like, what? Like, I think just understanding the why has taken some time, and we have room to grow, but I think we'll get there, and I'm excited to continue that work.
And I don't think we're probably even there next year of just saying you got a flat out required to do this. I mean, the conversation probably revolves around, why don't we want to get better? Because the research I've gone into these things and things like that. But as Megan said, that this was not, we didn't send anybody down, so they certainly followed up as to what's going on, but there was no mandatory getting this done or accountability piece on that side for this year.
And then I was surprised to see Darby's name on an option, because it just seems like the grade school's crazy enough as it is. How do you find time to?
I would say I don't get selected very often. I think the grade school knows that I'm busy. And I try to get in and do walkthroughs already, so I'm already in their classrooms. But I don't mind. I mean, Adam's one of the options, and I like giving them another option, but I haven't been selected a whole lot.
Okay, future plans. So we've been having some of these conversations about what this will look like moving forward. I have a lot of ideas for how to support those ESOL students more. Next year, PLCs, we have a plan to expand that to middle school and high school using late starts. So I am excited to get in a room with all those teachers monthly. I think that will provide an opportunity to see where they need support, because I don't know that I always know in those buildings. I do have a better idea of where the grade school needs support currently. Math implementation, this is going to be really nice to be on the ground floor of new math curriculum. I've played catch up curriculum-wise in lots of areas of the district, so it'll be really nice to be learning along with the teachers of what our new math curriculum has and how I can support them. New teachers are my favorite part, so we'll start that this summer. We'll start meeting with those teachers, and we've got some notes about things that they've said they would like a little bit more training on, ways that we can make them be successful and kind of lower that load for them. And
We started last year with new teachers. Every year before that, we've done a new teacher academy where we bring everybody in for one day. And it's really overwhelming for them because it's a lot of information thrown at them and none of it sticks. So this last summer we scheduled them one at a time. And Corey and I, just the two of us with them, spend 2 to 3 hours, and we are really intentional about looking at things that are specific to their role. So looking at their curriculum, making sure that they can access their online programs, looking at their power standards, different things like that.
Getting logged into Power School, like things
Yes.
like that, because a couple of them were learning their schedules for the first time in
Yes.
those meetings. So
It was just a lot more relaxed. It was easier for us to get to know them, and I think it's made them more comfortable coming to us when they've needed things then, instead of just me standing up in front of a large group and throwing a lot of information at them. So that was a good change, but we've got some ideas to make that even better for this year.
and then we will, like we said, survey teachers and have some face-to-face conversations and see, and we want to, adjust to where their area of needs is.
Is there a part where you can like, cause there's some teachers that have really good ideas or do something really good, but it may not be one of these, like necessarily strategies that you would possibly say, hey, another teacher's having that issue, and they can say, why don't you this time go shadow this teacher and watch how they handled that situation, just because it doesn't necessarily fit in this box.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, and that's why we want to give opportunities for them to get into other classrooms. And I think there was some times this year when we knew somebody was really good at something that we had selected, and we said, hey, instead of Corey modeling it this month, we know you're really good at this. Will you come model it? And I think that makes people feel good and recognizes that they're doing great things too. But yeah, absolutely, there's things that aren't on that list that are great classroom strategies that we just can't do them all. So.
Any questions? Daniel? Chris? Nicole? Okay. Jessica? Right? Okay.
I'm not walking out on
Okay. Okay, we're ready for number 3. Consideration of AI policy, second reading.
Yeah, I don't know, wait for Chris to use the restroom, but I'll try to talk slow. No, I'm not. This is the second read. I did not get any feedback over the last month. Like I said, with anytime we go to the second read, if there's feedback that needs to happen, we can come once we collect it tonight and then push this towards a second read next month. So I can answer any questions. As I said, this won't fix what I would say maybe be the AI issue. I think it has a place in our world and can check some boxes, but also make sure we're using it. Everybody's using it the right way, and some of there will be some educations and pieces of that, and continue to work, and kids will continue to be kids and trying to figure out a way to work the system. And as I said last time, some of our teachers now, like writing assignment must be done in class on that day, and those kinds of things where they got to actually write it out, and things that they're not used to doing. And teachers are adapting and evolving to the ever changes, and there are things out there that sometimes we don't catch. But this will give us some normal guidance. But I've talked long enough. Chris is back. I can answer any questions regarding this. And said if there are no, like I said, I didn't hear any changes over the last month. So I would recommend adoption of this policy.
I have a couple quick questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing that would change any of this, but just curious. do we have actual approved tools or platforms that we, are going to allow or not allow?
We have not set those in here, and just kind of talked about those main ones, but
Right.
if we want, if that guidance from the board wants us to just pick something, we haven't,
No,
just
I was
because.
just curious if
No.
there's like recommendations that.
No, not something that doesn't cost money, you know, those kinds of things.
Right.
You know, Magic School AI is, you know, when you think ChatGPT, it's so broad. It covers all of the world, where Magic School AI has cut out a lot of fluff, so when you do something, it's more geared education in mind. Yes, as opposed to if you just start using ChatGPT.
And is it one that's free?
They have the free version that we utilize, the paid version is a little more extensive, and just like ChatGPT.
Have you found that teachers prefer certain ones over others?
We've used Magic School a lot with things that I've done with teachers, but, you know.
I think it's one of those things, it's a personal preference. I know I have people that use Gemini more than, I use ChatGPT just because that's what I started using.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but,
Do we have any planned training to do with staff?
we will utilize, put some of that in our back to school training, and go over this policy, what's this look like? And then we'll have to figure out also what that look like giving it to kids too.
Right.
And this policy, going over the policy, I think they do a lot of like plagiarism and, you know, like you can use ChatGPT, you gotta just cite it, you know, those kinds of things. And make sure we're, you know, teaching them those things as well.
Under guiding principles, what's that next line supposed to say? Is it supposed to say in ways that?
Oh, right under the headline.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. No, I didn't usually that pervert it.
Old school
Yeah.
learner over there.
Is there like a set
You didn't use ChatGPT enough.
punishment that if the kids are caught doing any of this stuff?
I would have to check what classroom policies in terms of plagiarism. I think
It
that's
just
what
falls
you're
under that,
That
okay.
plagiarism is what I'm recommending, what I would say it would. You know, part of this policy does say, you know, a teacher can't just plug something into one of the things that says if it's AI generated or not. That can be one of the things, but that can't be the only thing they use. They still have to read the thing and they do what teachers do as well. So I think that's also a good thing with this.
My only other question or point is on the, under acceptable use for staff, the very last line on that first page, provide students with supervised learning opportunities using AI. That reads a little bit weird to me. Like at first when I read it, I was thinking we're gonna use AI to supervise? That doesn't make sense.
That,
to me.
I read it as we will,
Yeah, when
if
I
staff
read it a
use
few
it,
times,
if staff
I
use it,
was like,
it'll
oh,
be,
that's what he was
but yeah.
reading. So I don't know if there's a way to word it so that it, I don't know, maybe everybody's not, maybe it's clear for everybody but me, the way I read it, I don't know, but.
Okay, any more feedback here, Nicole? Kelly? Jessica, do you have anything? Brian? Okay, we'll need a motion to
Can I ask
approve.
a question,
Sure.
just to clarify? If Nicole, you read it with staff may use AI tools too, and then read that, does it make more sense? That's how I read,
AI tools, yeah.
if you, staff may use AI tools to provide students with supervised. Does that clarify it for you?
Well,
or
doesn't
what?
that change it? To me, I guess I'm taking it as the staff may, like the students can use those tools
Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
they're supervised,
Yeah.
yes,
When
yeah.
they're supervised.
Yeah.
when they're supervised,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Could you just, since you're saying staff may use AI tools to provide students with supervised learning opportunities, does it need using AI then? if you're already saying staff may use AI tools too.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I don't think they're right or wrong. I
Just
I-
take using AI
yeah,
off the end of it.
Yep. I don't think there's a. Yep. And I would say that you could still make a recommendation with this.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, we're okay with that.
Okay. I need a motion recommending the changes that we just made. I'll need a first.
Yeah, I'll be the first on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Chris is first. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Daniel second. All in favor, right hand? 7-0. Okay, consideration of out-of-district capacity.
Okay, so just a couple things I ask that you keep in mind. Remember, this is just for out-of-district kids. As I said earlier, if we have 30 first grader, extra third graders move into our district and show up next year, that's a great problem to have, and we'll reconvene with the admin and figure that out, and certainly come to the board with that. This is the out-of-district. About 3 years ago, state legislators passed the law that everybody was supposed to take any kid, no matter where they're bound, no matter where they live. That law has since adapted a little bit to also include in good standing. Now that makes it better for us. This was a very concerning law 3 years ago, just because people were putting these numbers very low because they just didn't want to have to take everybody. Now our principals, when we get one of those applications, we call the schools, we call colleagues in other districts that may possibly know, and really do some research about these kiddos, and then if we were to meet these numbers, then what they call the lottery would go in effect. So say for example we have space for 5 kindergartners, I'm just throwing that out there, and we get 7 of them out of districts that apply, we would take those 7 names and draw it down to 5. Those 5 would have the opportunity to come to school here, with the other 2 being on the wait list if they were in good standing. We would still check their good standing, meaning behaviors, grades, anything like that. So I'll kind of run through this. As I said, the board tasked us with this work. I don't know if there's really a right or wrong answer in terms of what we'll take because of the in good standing, especially when we get to the secondary. Now you'll see some of the grade school numbers are based on the information that Darby and Braden presented to you in their plans. So they look kind of odd. I also went into it kind of taking the feedback I'd heard through my screw up of the class splits, but keeping K3 at like 20, I think that's doable, but with the departmentalized in 4-6, you're going to see that number to be a 24. You know, that doesn't mean that's where those class splits. I still think that warrants starting a conversation with how we're utilizing our needs, if we're like they did in the classroom, to get staff involved in those things. So this table 1.0 is just where our current enrollment was as creation of this. You know, and that could certainly change between now and the end of the year. If it does, that doesn't mean, like if we have 3 move in, that doesn't change what you will be approving next month unless we see some change between now and asking for final approval. If you look at table 2.0, or I'm sorry, the stuff in the middle is kind of just the documents and the Google forms that those families have to fill out. If you look at table 2.0, that is the number in each grade level that admin, working with admin, is saying that we feel comfortable taking, and it keeps us within that number that we can control. If, like I said, if 30 kindergartners move in, it's a good problem to have, and you know, we've got some, you know, there's intervention. We'll make that happen, because I don't think them putting, you know, 30 into 2 classrooms or increasing 2 sections of kindergarten or first grade, however you want to look at it. I think you guys understand what I'm saying. But as you look through that, you look through 5 in kindergarten, because we currently have 35, and we can control of keeping that number at 40 when we're talking about the things that they have planned. And you can see it all the way through. As I said, when we got to the secondary, that number, as I said, with the in good standing, that's what's going to keep a kid out. We had originally put it at 10, and I'm like, well, why don't we just add a little bit? It can go all the way up to 100 if the board felt we were maybe leaving some kids off the table. History shows we usually get at the most 8 out-of-district kids a year. And then with some of those may not even get accepted. Last year we had 8 apply and we accepted 6. And so then you add all those together, these are the numbers that we're saying that we're comfortable that if our enrollment didn't change, people didn't move in, I know that's unlikely, or people move out, that we're willing to take from any of the other districts in the state of Kansas. As I said, I don't know if there's a right or wrong because, especially in the secondary, but we were kind of intentional with the grade school to make sure we stay within what they are also wanting to do as they presented to you just a little bit ago. So I can answer questions, gather feedback. As I said, I will bring this back next month. The application process is already open. That law had changed from just the month of June. It opened in January. We've had one family apply. I've let them know that we haven't decided on that number, that if they're in good standing and we stay underneath our capacity, they would be automatically accepted. If that grade level between now and June 30th gets above, I think he was a 7th or a freshman. If we had 21 other freshmen from out of district, then we'd have to put 20 of them, draw 20 names out of a hat or however we would do it, if that makes sense. Oh, entertain any and all questions or feedback on these numbers. What we're really looking to, what will get approved in May is this really the number that's table 2.0. Everything else gets, the table below it just gets changed from what feedback I gather here. As I said, admin, we worked on this since the last board meeting, and answer questions.
Do we run into any capacity issues with that 8th grade number? Having like 3 sections of the core classes?
If we got to 85, it would be pretty full classes.
Yeah.
Thing with the 8th grade, we're some of those kids will go to like algebra, so some of those numbers go down, but
English would probably be
one of the hard things.
And we do split those between 2 teachers.
Yeah, so we could all.
But you only have, right now we only offer 3 sections of like a middle school English, don't we?
Yeah, we're a 3-section district for the, I mean, minus the 2 that we have coming up. But yeah, most everything is, unless there was a scheduling thing, especially at the secondary level, high school. But yeah, we would just have, we would just have to move something if that was to happen.
It sounds like it's not gonna happen. So
I don't think so, but you know, I would.
If there was one that I thought might be problematic,
Yeah.
that's the one I thought maybe would be.
I said I will certainly take any and all feedback over the next, say like, you know, the next 3 weeks certainly, answer questions or how we got to this, and then we'll circle back to it in May for final approval.
This system is not exactly related to this, but just kind of looking at the number of teachers. Are we having the conversation, or will they, and it might help with them being departmentalized, but like to where a teacher will be like a floater between 4th, 5th, and 6th, when you get some of these differences and figures coming up?
That is not how they currently have it. They have, like, so what is it, 3rd
Like
grade?
if you jump from, you know, if you get a higher class and then they're in 4th and then they all go to 5th and then there's only 2 teachers in 5th, do you have?
Yes, they have had that conversation that
Okay.
somebody may not be teaching the same thing. I think we're back to that. That was when I came here, that was always a practice that somebody could teach 1st grade one year and then they might teach in 2nd next year because of what you're asking, Kelly. I think that happens, yes. Somebody may not necessarily be teaching the same thing next 2 years from
I
now.
know it's not really that big of a deal, but when you see 4th grade jump from, and that would be a 24 people enrolled, but if it went from 72 and then goes to 5th grade and you have 2 teachers.
Correct. That would certainly be a 3-section, and then if we would have to hire or reutilize an FTE in that area, absolutely.
The departmentalized probably helps with that though, because at that point they're doing less prep, so.
Sure,
switching
and that
to a
was,
different grade
yeah,
is not as
absolutely,
bad.
that was one of the reasons, you know, they met with staff and was wanting to go with that, was to, you know, if we're asking this, then what's also the give, and, you know, I've shared my thoughts on departmentalized. I'm not saying I taught that way for a couple of years. I'm curious to see what our response will be for the PLCs, because I think of that, they're no longer talking to their people. They have another grade level peer that is teaching the same thing, but we'll figure that part of it. That's a small thing, I think, to what they'll get out of it.
Interesting problem to have if we had 840
It's-
students next year.
Certainly would be a
Spilled the bad boy out.
wonderful problem to have, and we will, but conversations will look different, but they will be, probably, we'll get it figured out.
We may have to have 2 board meetings.
We will get it figured out, 100%.
Okay, anybody has any other questions? With Nicole, Kelly, Ron, Jessica? Okay. Transportation, Chad, you're up.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hand it over to Chad, kind of yearly, update to the board in terms of, the year within the transportation department, but then also, as Chad has worked hard to evolve our transportation department, but then also adapt to what he sees on a daily basis. So he's gonna kind of talk through the year, future plans, hopes, dreams. A lot of you guys, some of
We're
it
talking
is,
new buses though.
some of it is dreams, but I appreciate it. Like,
You guys know me, I dream big.
so we'll turn it over to Chad, and then he'll be able to answer any questions for you.
So this is kind of transportation department in the last year and going forward as well. So if I can figure this remote out. There we go. So currently we are transporting just over 50% of the district's enrollment daily. That is not counting extracurricular activities, that's just normal route. I think our current enrollment was 700 and some students, and we're transporting over 400. So, transport quite a few kids. Like I said, that doesn't even count their extracurricular activities. So, there's other kids that we do transport on those days.
And just so you're tracking, funding wise, we get funding, FTE waiting for every kid over 2 miles, sorry. Correct. 2 miles.
And the only children that we transport really under that 2 mile mark currently are pre-K kids, because I feel like we should go door to door to pick those younger kids up. So. Sing slow.
You just think too fast, Jay.
Yeah, I know. All right, so we're currently operating with 12 full-time drivers. That is not including myself. Last year I scheduled myself on a route, and that doesn't leave me flexibility to fill in if anybody's sick or drives an activity or anything. So this year I did not schedule myself, and that has made it a lot better to where I don't have to rely on staff. I can fill in where I'm needed. So we also have one pre-K teacher that drives an afternoon route for me. She drives pre-K route with a minivan and some car seats in it. So we are obviously operating below ideal staffing levels, have for some time now. To be completely staffed, I could probably add 4 additional full-time drivers. We're getting by on what we have, but ideally, 4 drivers would make us complete.
4 drivers that would each have a route,
Correct.
and you have enough buses for,
Yes.
so you would just split a
So,
route up.
so like our Mount Hope right now has just right around 70 students on that bus. So it'd be great to split that into 2 routes. The Creekside route is getting to be a pretty full route, so that could be split up. And then there's a couple other routes that are just super long routes, so we could split up to minimize that, bus time for those kids. So, I need to start pushing the button before I'm ready to talk. So, we're also, we could definitely use a pre-K bus para. I have a driver we have 2 pre-K routes this year. One of them only has about 7 or 8 kids, the other one has 32. So they both go to different sides of the district, that's why one has so much and one doesn't have very many. But we've been doing that route all year without a para. She's been a trooper, and she has done that route by herself, but that does, increase some safety and workload concerns.
You know, because every one of those kids are buckled into a 5-point harness. So if the parents don't come on the bus and buckle them up, then the driver has to go back and buckle everybody up. And in case of emergency, she would have to get all those kids off the bus by herself. We just haven't had anybody even apply. So I know there was talks at something changing at the preschool maybe next year, and somebody might be interested, but I have no idea what that would look like. That's just what I've heard. So, but anyways, we could definitely use one bus para as well. I don't think we need one on the other pre-K bus just because it's only 7 or 8 kids. That's a lot more easier to manage for one person.
So are you needing somebody like for morning, noon, and afternoon?
So they would ride each route with her, at least morning and afternoon. Her midday route is only about 10 kids, but her morning and afternoon is 30 plus.
Is this something that like a high school student could do?
The 18, I think, would probably be just in terms of a para and the supervision part, but if we have somebody, we probably we find somebody maybe they can replace somebody else and we can put somebody else kind of thing. I don't know.
It would be basically helping, you know, ideally,
do my job for a good hour and I'll go ride the bus.
Ideally, we don't want the driver to get out of their seat. You know,
Right.
we want them to stay there so they can be focused on what's going on around them. So ideally, this person would, you know, be buckling and unbuckling children on the bus, helping just kind of maintain, you know, how preschool kids are, and you get 30 of them together, it gets a little crazy sometimes.
That's why I was wondering if it.
College.
But she's been a trooper. She's did great all year, and she hasn't complained once. So she's been awesome. As far as maintenance on our vehicle goes, you know, preventative maintenance is our biggest thing. George is our mechanic. He works part-time for us, but I think he does a real good job of getting in here when we need him to. We try to keep up on any preventative maintenance that we can handle ourselves. We have had to farm a little bit of work out this year just because it's bigger than what we can handle. But George, as far as what we can do in-house, he still does quite a bit for us. So all of our oil changes, you know, any small tasks like that. He's changed out radiators on buses before. But when it comes to bigger things like transmission stuff, we've got to farm some of that stuff out. Obviously, preventative maintenance, it's gonna, you know, minimize our downtime and just help us be more efficient in what we do. We did take possession of our new activity bus. We ordered the wheelchair bus on Friday, so it's currently sitting in the garage waiting for George to wire up the wheelchair lift on it. So it is nice and shiny sitting out there. Like I said, safety is always our number one, you know, priority. Always checking maintenance, minimizing downtime. You know, with the budget restraints, we've just been we've just been more mindful where we put our money this year. You know, like, hey, if you don't need tires, you know, if your tires can last another 2 months, and let's wait till, you know, a budget rolls over, and just stuff like that. But for the most part, we've been good about just being, you know, prioritizing where our budget needs to go. With budget considerations, like everything else, you know, fuel's going up, maintenance costs are going up, insurance has gone up. You know, parts for these buses aren't getting any cheaper, so that's just something to keep in the back of our minds when we're looking at budgets for next year as well. Like I said, I think we do a good job in transportation at prioritizing where our funds need to go and what needs to be done at any given time.
So with that in mind, do you have positions posted for bus drivers?
We have all year. I've posted CDL driver, non-CDL driver, Sub driver, activity driver.
So are any of the buses that they would be putting miles on and that kind of thing, are those like backup buses that you?
So we keep spares. We currently have 3 spares, and actually with this new activity bus, once I get it inspected and on the road, then one of our current activity buses will become a route bus, and then we'll have another spare. But once we're fully staffed, we'd only have like 1 spare sitting here. So, and everything else would be in use.
Right, so what happens if you have 2 buses that are needing maintenance or not running, but you only have 1 spare?
So, well, we have our activity buses that we can use too. As long as it's a yellow bus with the stop sign and lights, we can use it for a route. The only bus we're not able to use as a route is our white bus. So, like I said, so far, we've done a good job. If something needs done, you know, if it's a big ticket item, then we'll do it over like a spring break or a day out of school. Like I gotta take one of our current route buses in for front end alignment, and it's gonna go in next Monday since we don't have school that day. So that way, it's not gonna disrupt any routes.
How many route buses compared to activity buses?
So,
There's a difference between the two, right?
well,
Sorry, this is all new to
Yeah,
me,
no,
right?
yeah.
so in the school world, an activity bus is a white bus that cannot be used for a route. But we have 2 other buses that we call activity buses that we only use for, you know, sports or field trips or stuff like that. But they can also be used on route because they are yellow buses, fully outfitted with the stop sign and the lights. The white bus that we have does not have, you know, the extra lights or stop arm or anything like that.
So to answer, I think your question, we're tracking, we would have to have 4 down before.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Tracking?
yeah.
So on the expenses for the budgets, just with that coming up, if you have an idea of like, and I'm sure you have it somewhere, but like what is spent this year, what needs to be done or what wasn't done because there wasn't the money for, that we can maybe have those figures prior to budget?
And like I said, currently, we're operating within budget. I'm gonna have to kind of reallocate some funds, because like our tire budget is completely diminished for this year, but there's some other stuff that I can move into that.
And I would, sorry, I'd say we've always probably budgeted high on fuel just because the 2 years before I came, fuel was so expensive. It was higher than what it is now. So while his budget's kind of divided by tires and fuel, it's still one big pot. And if he uses too much of it, he can adjust it.
So I just wanted to see if there's really like an issue that we're not.
Yeah, I don't think
providing
we haven't done anything to a bus as you compare it to like, we haven't maybe painted that building as opposed to buses that we've got.
Okay, just checking.
Good question.
And so you have in the budget room for 4 more drivers that you're not utilizing?
That's a different budget. His is just for, that's
Okay.
salaries, yeah.
Okay.
We do obviously pay some overtime and that just now because some people pick up extra hours because of, but yeah.
And you know, with having minimum staff, currently, you know, we have some drivers, especially during April and May, is just super busy time because we have track, middle school track, high school track, softball, baseball, golf, tennis, you know, all this other stuff going on. So there's times where we might have 6 trips going out in one day, and I gotta have a couple drivers, you know, leave early to get the kids to the event, come back and do the route, and then go back and get them. So it's just putting a lot.
And that's not efficient either. I mean,
Yeah, just more fuel and
Yeah.
wear.
Yeah. So, I have been I am currently researching a CDL training commitment. So if we hire a new driver and we train them to get their CDL, you know, what it would look like after we train them, if they would have to, you know, agree to like a commitment contract or whatever that might look like. I don't know yet. But to where they would have to work for us for a certain amount of time, you know, just to kind of protect our investment in that training, and, you know, improve retention.
what goes into that CDL training? Because we do that in-house, right? If you have somebody that
We
just
do
walks
now.
in off the street,
Yes, so I have about a half a day slideshow presentation that I do with them, and there's a test afterwards. Because back in 2017, to get any new endorsement on your license now, you have to go through ELDT training, no matter if you're getting driving a semi, driving a school bus, anything to do with CDL. So we do all that in-house. It's about a half a day, like I said, in classroom, and then there's range training to where we take them out and do different backing maneuvers they would be performing on their CDL tests, and then there's road time where you actually go out and drive on the road. And they have to log, I think it was 15 hours of range time and 15 hours of drive time, and then also the classroom portion. So, and then we also take them in our bus to go get their test. We've been testing with HCC, and then, we pay for that test as well. So as long as they pass it. So.
Have you had quite a few that you got everything through and then they left?
We have not. I've had one that started going through the training and then left, but she didn't get very far along. I've talked to some other schools around us that are also looking into similar things because they have, had put drivers out in the CDL, and then a week later they quit and went and drove for somebody else. So.
Do you know what our financial investment is into the training?
I could definitely kind of put something together and see what that investment would look like, because obviously it's going to be my time or whoever else is training.
Right.
So, and then just fuel costs and buses and.
As Chad said, he's kind of collecting some data now, and we'll
Yeah.
kind of look at everything
You
to the
just share
board.
it with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I know this probably sounds stupid, but because I've been bugging one parent, grandparent to do it, but have we, thrown out there at all, to look at family members that are going on the events to drive, that are already going to these events anyways, to staff as?
Jeff Dufresne used to, in that
Yeah.
prime
Okay.
thing, there are some, but we'd pay them to even watch the games. Cause they
Well,
get
that's
paid
what I
for it.
mean, yeah, they
Absolutely.
can
Yep,
And
absolutely.
get paid
Jeff's
to
still
go.
on our staff and does that when we need him to. But yeah, anybody that wants to just sign up to do activities and get their CDL, I don't know what that would look like if they're not going to be full-time driving for us and we train them. I don't know
We'll take it.
what that would look like.
We'll figure it out. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, just because I'm sure parents, grandparents, people don't really know that
Mhm.
that's a thing.
And we have had staff too, like Brittany Hartman, girls play volleyball, and I know she drove a minibus to a volleyball meet one night. So,
Right, yeah.
So,
We'll put something out on Facebook.
I don't know, just going anyways.
and I know there's been some other schools that have done, back to school nights or something. They'll have a couple buses over in the parking lot, and they'll be like, come drive a bus around the parking lot and see if it's something you'd want to do every day.
Nothing wrong with that.
I know,
Well, just go around the track.
just things, that some of these other schools have been trying to do outside of the box, just because we're not the only ones with, short on
Well, that's a good
drivers.
idea. My mom's retired, maybe she would do it.
Hey, come on.
They don't have to live in district.
Well, I'm glad I didn't have to go through
We
all that.
offer insurance packages for.
Well, I know one of the guys that I've been trying to get, he goes to everything, has been debating because his wife goes with him. And so I
You
think
can
he was
ride in-
wanting
you
to
can
know if
ride in
his
the
wife
seat
could
right
ride
behind
with him.
We had a driver last year that drove for us, and every day her 2-year-old and 3-year-old rode with her on the bus. We put her car seats in the bus for her so they could ride along with her every day, and they loved it. So I think there were some days she didn't love it.
I did tell you that if you ever run into where you're do or die, call me.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tomorrow.
Because I'm going to this line.
Like I said,
I could do a little bit.
like I said, we are getting by.
I would say my 4 years, this is the least amount, that I've driven in a year, so.
And I think me not scheduling myself on a route this year really helped with because I don't have to rely on other staff so much to fill in when there are absences. I can do that myself.
What, just, so, a month, this is the last month, how many times did you have a route? Let's see here.
Quite a few. Once the middle of March hit, so I'm driving at least 2 or 3 times a week. So.
Mostly for activities or routes?
Either activities or, I usually let the drivers take activities if they want them, and then I'll just drive their route for them. Yeah. But even, I say 4, drivers full-time, but even if we got 2 more drivers full-time, we would be sitting in a way better situation than we currently are. So.
What's considered full-time? A route?
So a morning route and an afternoon route.
Are they required to cover activities then?
No.
That's,
So I have drivers do activity, and I have drivers that have no desire to do any activities. They just do their morning route or afternoon route. Some retirees are only able to work a certain amount of hours per calendar year. So, I got one that she just does a morning route or an afternoon route and just stays barely under that, those hours.
And we pay them 6 hours. Right.
So they get,
3 hours.
they get 3.5 hour guarantee. So if you drive a morning route and an afternoon route, even if your route just takes 45 minutes each, you get a 3.5 hour guarantee that day. Now, most routes take at least an hour. So
do you have to have a CDL for just the big buses?
the big buses, yes. So for non-CDL, it has to be under 26,000 pounds, all of how many buses are, and it can't be over 14 people. Yeah. But currently we only have 1 spare minibus sitting, about 2 spare, depends on which bus, and then so we really need CDL drivers more than anything. So. And I got one that we hired. I think she was on the report for last month. She's already told me that this summer she wants to get her CDL, so we'll be training her this summer, and she'll be in a big bus next year. Looking forward. So last year we got the routing software. I know, like I said, I dream big. Eventually, I'd like to see tablets on all of our buses. Maybe not on every single bus, but at least a tablet per driver, and then maybe a couple extra for subs. What this would do would help us with, well, I guess that's probably my next slide. I was thinking too fast. Yeah. So this would help with student ridership. So I know there's some students or some schools that have, maybe their students that ride the bus carry a student ID or an RFID button, or even there's just a picture that pops up on the tablet and the bus driver can check them in when they get on or off the bus. And then if a student gets on the bus that's not supposed to be on the bus that day, it'll come up right red, hey, this student's not supposed to be here this day, or they're on the wrong bus, or whatever that might be. And then as your normal students get on every day, somebody's not riding, your route automatically optimizes on, it'll skip over, so it's going to give you navigation door to door to these students' houses, but it'll optimize because it knows these 2 students aren't riding that day, so it'll just take them off the route completely and route you around them. So, like I said, it would help out with obviously student tracking, and not just because we want to track students, just for a safety standpoint.
And some of that, is like when the elementary kids come out of the school, some of it's still some old, the secretaries take time to write out who's riding and who's not riding buses. And so if we get to that, some of these things will also free up systems that, we've just done. But we're a little ways from that. Chad's still collecting.
Does it go with the routing software?
It does. So one of the reasons we purchased the routing software we did, which is TransFinder, is because you can build it a la carte. Right now we only have the routing software portion of it, and there's a few things that go with that. But then you can add this on later on, and it'll just build onto it off the line software itself. So with those tablets, you'd also get turn-by-turn navigation to every house, or every stop. It would definitely help if we have substitute drivers or a new driver that doesn't know the route well, or even me if I go, I drive about every route we have out there, so it's hard for me to memorize every single one of them. So usually when I'm out, I got my paper up and Apple Maps going on my phone. So just because we cover such a wide space, but it would definitely improve the route consistency. Like I said, if there's a student not riding that day, it would optimize your route, and then the driver wouldn't even have to think about it. With that too, there's an optional parent app that just improves communication with the driver and the parent. So instead of, say, they get stuck behind a train for 15, 20 minutes, which has happened out on the west part of the district, and now you're running 15 minutes late, you can send just a message to the rest of your route, not the ones you've already dropped off, but just says send a message to the rest of my route saying, hey, running 15 minutes behind, and just sends it to those parents. So, and then once their student, gets off the bus, the driver checks them out, it would also send them a notification to the app, hey, your child just arrived at home. So, stuff like that. Looking forward to next year. Like I said, we're going to continue focusing on staffing and how to retain and recruit, new staff. I'm always looking for ways to improve the efficiency on how we do things. Every safety meeting we have once a month for our drivers, I'm always asking, what I can do better, and always trying to brainstorm how we can save money for the district and, just be more efficient on how we do things in transportation. So, like I said, looking forward to 26-27 school year. My plans for next year is we have one wheelchair student in our district, and we do have 2 wheelchair buses well, not counting the new activity bus, but 2 mini buses with wheelchair lifts. One will only transport, I think, 6 students, so it stays parked out here for a spare, just in case the other one, the lift goes down, because it's just hard to put out a bus when we're only transporting 6 students. So the other one that we are using daily to transport the wheelchair student is it'll hold 9 other passengers and the wheelchair student. It's got about 250,000 miles on it, so it's starting to get up there. It's starting to nickel and dime us a little bit. We've had to put some money into the lift. So next year I would be looking at, trying to buy a new minibus with a wheelchair lift, probably a 10 and 2, which would be 10 passengers plus 2 wheelchair accessible spots. What I've done, like with our activity bus, and you guys are more than welcome to come see it anytime you want, but the last 6 seats can come out completely. And once you take those seats out, you put 3 wheelchairs in there. So, but then when you're not using it for a wheelchair accessible student, then you can put those seats back in, and we can use it just like any other normal seat. So, and that's what I would do with this bus too. It's called a track system, and I would make sure that if we're not using it for a wheelchair, then we're able to put a seat back in it and use it regular. So, I've also been looking at Suburbans possibly next year, just because with our larger vehicles like our transit vans or Suburbans, it helps us out so much with coaches and Scholars Bowl and these big teams that have to take another vehicle. I mean, we use our transit vans almost daily, and the Suburban also, it goes out all the time for just different, FFA uses it for different stuff, and I think another Suburban in our fleet would get used just as much.
So you don't have to replace one, you're wanting to...
It would just be adding an additional, yes.
I guess we bought the driver's ed car, but the Suburban was probably the last large passengers outside of a bus that would have been purchased before.
And it's a 2016.
So we have one now?
We have one Suburban. And it's in very good shape. I think it'll still last us a number of years. But I think adding one would definitely be beneficial to us.
And Ken, you might be able to speak to this too. I think probably why you only see one Suburban, because there was a point in schools where they got those 10-passenger vans, and we've got a fleet of those, but
So
no one
yeah,
really
those
likes
we
to
have.
drive those.
What's that?
10-passenger vans? How many do we have?
We have 3, yeah. So, and I don't know if you guys know the van laws with schools, but they have 14-passenger vans, but schools cannot use them. Schools can only use 10-passenger vans, and it has to be rated for 10 passengers. So you can't just get a 14-passenger van and take 4 seats out. It's gotta be rated for 10 passengers, and there's only, Ford used to make these 10-passenger transits, they quit making them. And now there's just a few companies around that have to modify them, but then you have to get a whole new weight sticker put on it, and it's gotta be legit, so. And KHP are very serious about these vans. Every
They
training.
just write it on there with a marker?
Yeah, every training I go to, they talk about these vans, but those 10-passenger vans are nice, we use them, like I said, every day, so. In conclusion, like I said, we're mostly committed to safe and reliable transportation. I mean, that's what we do every day, so we want to be safe and we want to be reliable. I preach to these drivers, consistency is key. I mean, don't be 10 minutes late to your route every other day. You know, be on time every single day, that way they know when to expect you. We focus on students and families. I've had conversations with several families this year. Some praising us, some cussing us, but several families throughout the year. And like I said, we're always looking to improve. So anything you guys see that I can do better, please let me know, and I'll definitely make adjustments. So, other than that, anything from you guys?
Anything?
Don't go farther.
Okay, next, you're up again.
I'm up again. So, should be in you guys' packet too, I believe, but we're looking this year at, I know we sold, I think 4 buses last year. I have 2 that I'd like to look at selling on Purple Wave this year. The first one is a 2007. It's starting to age out. You can only drive a bus for 25 years, and then you can put it into an activity bus. You can't use it on route anymore. Who wants a 25-year activity bus? So it's just starting to age out. It's got air brakes on it, which there's only a few people in our transportation department that have an air brake endorsement, and it's just starting to nickel and dime us. The other one is a 2010. Again, it's just starting to have some maintenance problems and start costing us more money than it's worth. So those are the 2 I'd look at seeing if you guys would be okay with the list on Purple Wave.
And just so the board is tracking that, though, which we don't make much from these sales, you could probably talk. Well, you.
I think last year one of the big buses brought maybe $4,000.
That money just turned into revenue into capital outlay, and so.
Do you have like a certain amount that you have to get or want to get before
No, I
you
mean,
let it go? You
these-
just take what you get?
These buses don't owe us anything. I mean, they've served their purpose, and yeah, it's just time to move on. And I've had other schools, last year we had some other schools that bought a couple of our buses, but I just, we're selling them for a reason, so I don't know why any other school would want to buy it.
On Purple Wave, there's no reserve.
Yeah, there's no reserve, it's just an auction site, so, and I think
Whatever it brings, it brings.
by law, we have to take either sealed bids or auction it off. We can't just sell it outright to somebody.
If we didn't buy you a new bus for the next 3 or 4 years, would you still want to sell these?
I would, yeah. I would, just because they're costing us more money than we're worth.
Make sure you take the good tires off of them, put them on the.
We already have. We already did. We had a couple with bad tires and we took some off and changed them around. Yeah.
He brought up that he needed, repairs, parts and stuff.
Yeah.
We'll just put
Yeah,
that
whatever
on.
you need.
Pour them out and put them on the shelf.
Yeah. Okay, I'll need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve selling the 2 buses Chad recommended.
Do we have a second? Ryan, second. All in favor, right hand. 7-0.
Thanks, guys.
Are any of these ones are the ones that we have to scrap out for the,
Nope, so that one I actually called,
so it was in worse shape than these?
well, it was just older. It was an 07, but that was just part of that grant, so it still runs fine, but part of that grant is we have to destroy it. So.
But we couldn't have destroyed it.
No, it has to be the bus that we put on the grant.
Don't you love
Because you have to take pictures of the engine block and show mileage for the year before and all this other stuff, so, yeah.
How do I do that? Should I get somebody too?
That's why.
Right.
I got it. Come back here.
You don't care
That's
about?
something I do.
Oh, okay.
You should have seen her face. You might got slapped there for a second.
I'll just go home then.
She's the wrong one to say that to.
Okay, so just want to kind of review our curriculum review cycle before we jump into the quotes here, but just to review, our cycle that we go through for each content area is every 6 years. So we look at each content area every 6 years. We go through this process to look at our curriculum resources and potentially adopt a new curriculum. So just to kind of recap the last few years, my first year in this role in 22-23, we reviewed ELA and we adopted CKLA, Amplify ELA, and McGraw-Hill Study Sync. 23-24, that new ELA curriculum was implemented. We reviewed SEL curriculum that year and adopted Character Strong. And then we also reviewed social studies and adopted a 712 resource, HMH, and then also a Kansas Journey, which is a middle school curriculum. And then we also reviewed music that year. That one looked a little bit different. We ended up getting them, increasing their sheet music budget, getting them some additional resources, programs that they needed within their music programs, and I think some other things for those programs. So then last year we reviewed PE and art. That looked similar to music, where not necessarily like a textbook per se, but again reviewed standards, looked at what we're teaching, and got them some additional resources. So that brings us to this year, where we reviewed math, and we will get into that in just a minute. Next year, our big one will be science, and then this one wasn't on the list, but I added it. I would like to look at our career exploration program. Right now we use Zello. So some of you that have had kids in the system have probably heard of it. That is a program that our students use, starting some of them in elementary. I know as early as 6th grade. There's some career and interest surveys that they take within there, and then it's also a tool that they use to research colleges and careers and what type of training, education that they need for that. Hasn't necessarily been used to its full extent, but also our staff hasn't necessarily been pleased with it, and it's just been one that we've always used. So I'd like to form a group to look at that next year and get some input from middle school and high school teachers and look at some options for that. So jumping into math. This was our timeline. So this process started back in July. Created a math adoption team with some input from admin. So if you click on that link, you can see who all was on that link, who all was on that team, but all grade levels were represented. So K through 12, we had representatives from all grade levels that were a part of this team. We had our first meeting in September. At that meeting, we talked about decision-making models. So going into this, it was really important that we all understood that we probably weren't going to have consensus on this decision. And I really stress that I don't want them to put this decision on me, that they're going to be the ones using this. I want it to be a product that they are bought into and that they are excited about using. And then also we talk about the importance of putting some numbers to this. I think it's really important that we have some data to go off of, that we don't just go off of our feelings, and so you'll see some of that here in a bit. So then jumping also into September, we surveyed all staff who teach math to identify our priorities. So that is that first packet, or part of your packet, this one with the green highlighted section. So I sent out a survey to anyone in the district that teaches math and asked them, what are the most important things that you're looking for in your next math resource? And you can see the highest responses. So the first column is across the district, and then broke it down to K-5 and then 6-12. So typically when we look at curriculum programs, it's broken down K-5, 6-8, 9-12. So that's kind of why I separated it that way. And then you can see their comments down below also. Some people threw some of those in there as well. So I highlighted the top ones, and then we took some time talking about what those were, and knew as a team that those were the things that were most important to our teachers.
So, just really quick, sorry, so I understand this, because I was confused looking at it.
Okay.
Trying to be prepared. Is it like a 1 through 5?
Yes, it was a 1
system?
through 5,
Okay.
6 scale, and then I just averaged them. So,
Okay, perfect.
yeah, so I highlighted anything that was above a 4. Also, during that first meeting in September, we did some content review. So we did the first steps of our standards alignment work. We went through and looked at our math standards, prioritized them, did some vertical alignment work. We will review that. We'll go back and revise that once we have our new resources next school year. So we will map that work to our new resource. Then in October, we started reviewing curriculum resources. We attended overview presentations. A lot of those were Zooms from those companies, went over what their program had to offer. We looked at Ed Reports. That's a third-party site that does reviews on textbook companies. And then we also used some rubrics that we received from TASN to go through and score. It was 6 to 8 companies depending on what grade level. So from there, we narrowed that down to 2 programs to pilot at each grade level. So that was different for K-5, 6-8, and 9-12. Then starting in November, we visited schools that were already using those programs that we were planning to pilot, got their feedback. We were able to observe them teaching those, heard the good and the bad about them, and those were really beneficial visits. And then, so that brought us to when we came back from Christmas break, we had done our training on the programs and we jumped into our pilots. So we piloted the one program starting in January, our second program in February, so each of them were about a unit or 6 weeks. At the end of each pilot, I surveyed teachers that did the pilot, so one from each grade level, on those same things that they had determined were most important. So that's the second sheet here. So the second one is the K-5 math team feedback. So of the 2 programs, they piloted Reveal Math and iReady Math, and so you can see how they scored it based on those items that they deemed most important. The next one is 6-8. They also piloted Reveal Math and iReady and scored each of those areas. And then 9-12 piloted Reveal Math and HMH into math and scored those. And then you will also see down at the bottom, after they had completed both pilots, I sent them out the results of these surveys, and I said, okay, based on everything you know, the results of this, the pilots, the visits to other schools, all this work that you've done, give me your vote anonymously. And so you can see how they voted down there at the bottom of those on our pilot team that had piloted. So, K-5, our decision was a little bit split, 5-2, but the others were unanimous on their choices. So then we got that group together just last week during late start and talked through options. So, you know, they had access to everything during the pilot, but I needed some information from them as far as, you know, do you want both online and text options? Do your students need both options? Do you need the add-ons? You know, so we talked through some of that. What do you want professional development to look like? Some of those types of things, and from there I was able to kind of customize our quotes to what the teachers were asking for. And so that brings us to April today. So any questions about the timeline or process that we went through?
Did you go through the same process when you did the ELA?
Yes.
You did. Was there, because there's some feedback that ELA didn't quite match some of the standards, alignment and stuff like that they have now. So I just didn't know if there was something that was done differently.
No, we went through the same process. I would say when we did that, that was before we really did our work in standards alignment. I don't know if it was maybe something we were as focused on back then when we did that. It was my first year in this role. And I would say you noticed that that was the #1 score from everyone. They all know how important that is now.
Yeah, that's I think the most feedback I get is
so
that it doesn't match. So it was just as long as we were shifting and making that correction.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let Craig jump in here and talk about textbook budget a little bit.
So how are we gonna pay for this, right? Because if you remember back to the ELA, it's gonna have had the big price tag. We were fortunate enough that we were able to spend some of our ESSER dollars because we use it for summer school and things like that. But textbook budget comes out of what we call Fund 55. It's a textbook fund. It's one of those funds that does not generate revenue on its own, right? So we have to put money into it from our fees that are paid at enrollment, supplements that, which is not a lot, but then we transfer from our general fund every year, around $150,000 a year, to be able to continue to build this up. We have to do that as much 2 years ago, but knowing we were going into this adoption this year, and then knowing science might be the same, but we'll be looking to do the same. But it is limited what you can purchase out of that account, okay? It's not like your general fund, you can just use it on everything. It has to be textbooks, student material, instructional material, but we can carry that over, so it is like a savings account. We currently have just north of $300,000 in that account. You know, and it will certainly take a hit if this is approved, and we'll work on building that back up. Knowing that ELA and math will always probably be the two biggest purchases in terms of curriculum. You know, and we're getting ready to do the second one and have some time to slowly continue to build that back up over the next, it's a 6-year, commitment process for each one. So, but that's how we can pay for it. Like I said, this is one of those things that I think is extremely important to keep, updated materials in the hands of our teachers and students. And unfortunately, with that, sometimes comes a hefty price tag. We did, look at every option. We talked extensively about the online component piece of it, and knowing that we were pretty darn close this year of our legislators saying no technology at all K6 or K5. It almost made it out of committee, and so, but when Megan looked into that, it wasn't cheaper just to buy the online once a year. Okay, we get it for the 6th year, and we would save money than trying to buy it every year. So we've looked at all those different options, but I can answer any questions in terms of how we fund that. We kind of plan ahead a little bit, but trying to transfer a little bit of money into this every year at the end of the budget cycle.
So we do consistently Transfer $150,000.
I would say, 2 years ago it was not that much knowing what we had in it, but that's about the amount that should be ideally transferred if you can.
Is that what's budgeted every year?
That's what has been budgeted. When we made adjustments to the budget this year, that was kind of one of the first things that I took off. Doesn't mean it won't get put on once we close out the budgets with transfers.
I don't anticipate science being this high next year. ELA.
Social studies, it'll be similar to social studies, and we know what we paid on that. And so we've got a little bit of time to then slowly build that up, so it doesn't have to be 150. But also knowing that I'm trying to plan a little bit for the future too.
All right, so some recommendations going into next year. Some conversations with math team, and specifically at the middle school. The way that we do our accelerated path, our students that we accelerate to get through those middle school courses a little bit quicker so that they can take Algebra 1 as 8th graders, we'd like to make some changes to that. And that was specifically why we looked at some of the programs that we did. So Reveal, the program that we're going to recommend, they have a path, a curriculum that's specifically for those students. So right now, we determine students that want to go onto that accelerated path halfway through their 7th grade year. And halfway through their 7th grade year, we bump them up to 8th grade math. And that's created some challenges because they're missing the second half of their 7th grade math standards of that content, and that's been problems down the road that they've missed some of that. So this option, instead, it moves at a quicker pace, but it still gets them through all of that content over that 2 years. So those students will now be identified when they come out of 6th grade. They will start in that accelerated program at the beginning of 7th grade and be completed with Algebra 1 by the time they're done with their 8th grade year. So that is one recommendation, and then also to add a new high school course, applied math, and there's a textbook recommendation for that in your quotes, but this would replace Algebra C for, we require 3 credits of math, and so our students that typically have taken Algebra A, B, and C, just as we were doing some of that standards work this year, and we had a couple of new teachers to the district, and we were all kind of confused, what are we supposed to be teaching in Algebra C, because Algebra 1 is essentially split between Algebra A and Algebra B at a slower pace to get students those 2 credits. But then Algebra C was really just kind of a review of Algebra A and B. So this would be an option just to do like an applied math, a work-based learning, a work-based skills type of math. It's more hands-on, more work-based, work skills. And so our math department is excited about adding that option for next year for that 3rd credit for some of our students. And then as far as resource recommendations, based on the feedback from teachers, obviously their vote, recommendation is iReady for K-5. And then in addition to the core program, you'll see MyPath on there. And that is a diagnostic. So you hear us talk about FastBridge. That's our screener. So that tells us kids that are at risk. MyPath is going to dig in a little bit, or their diagnostic is going to dig in a little bit deeper. It's really based on standards and shows us what gaps kids are missing, and then it plugs them into interventions based on that. So that is a intervention program and a diagnostic. It'll really help with planning acceleration groups, and we like that option for 6-8 as well. And then for 6-12, I put 6-8, that should be, oh no, it is on there. Reveal Math is the one that they selected. I will point out that 6-8 went with the print-only option. They did not feel like they needed the digital component. Teachers will still have access to the digital, but they did not want that for their students. And then AGA is Algebra, Geometry, Algebra 2. They also went with Reveal. The teachers at that level did like the digital option to be able to assign students work digitally. They have students gone a lot for activities and that sort of thing, and like that option. So
So will the MyPath replace FastBridge for math?
no. So FastBridge will continue to be our screener. That tells us just if they're at risk, puts them into those 3 tiers. This really gives us a lot more information. So it breaks it down by standard, where FastBridge is skills, and it puts them into this. So it's an online program that it puts them into to work on these skills.
Is it another test?
It is.
Would you only do it for those at risk, or would you have them all do it?
They will all do it because it does above 2, so it does enrichment activities as well.
Do you not feel that we're getting so many tests with
Yeah, and that-
FastBridge and interim state, mini assessment state? I mean, it seems like my kid is testing all the time.
And that
What are we
was
learning?
when I brought this to when our team got together last week. That was one thing I brought up. I said, "Are you sure you want to continue to do FastBridge and iReady together?" And that team felt like there was a need to do both. The group that was here said that they did that assessment within their math block. That it took 1 day of their math time.
The MyPath?
Yes. Yeah. And so then that would take the place of their intervention time 2 days a week. So it's that they would do the MyPath.
How often will they do it? Just as often as they do?
Yeah, 3 times a year.
We currently use IXL for math.
Yes.
Yes, and so they probably take a diagnostic for that as well. So
And we're getting rid of that
we're
one.
getting rid of ISL because
Yes.
the state's no longer purchasing. So I don't necessarily know we'll be adding. I agree. I would probably do certainly over assess our kids, but that would take the place of something. This will take the place of something we're currently already giving.
And we also believe that this will take the place of some of the progress monitoring tools that we're using currently. So, they're using Math Connections and a few different pieces depending on where kids are at. And this is one tool that will replace all of those, where teachers are kind of having to go and find different things depending on levels that kids are at. It's really a cool product to be able to put a kid exactly, it's like looking at my own kid who's in 6th grade and seeing that he's still missing these specific skills from 4th grade and seeing him backfill those skills to catch up to where he needs to be. That's been kind of cool, because otherwise I wouldn't have known specifically what was making him at risk,
Yeah, I guess it just seems like, are we making sure that the data is not all over the place, that it's actually flowing together? Because it seems like you're getting these results on one thing and you're getting these results on another test, because they may have just tested bad on one day and then they're getting another test, and yeah, it's just between, like, the mini state assessments or whatever don't fall because they haven't learned that at the right time of year, and so those scores aren't reflective. It just seems like we're testing just to test, where this sounds purposeful. It's just all the other testing that we're doing. It's just, seems like we're teaching less than we are testing.
Well, I hope we're not just testing to test. I hope that if we're giving a test, we're doing something with that data, and I think that's really why we're using PLCs and making sure that we're spending time looking at that data and doing something with it, and not just testing a kid to test a kid.
And I also say, like, what we give, state assessments and minis, yes, they seem like they're the same, but, we give the minis to see where our kids are in terms of standards. FastBridge is just a screener that's just identifying kids are at risk. So yes, while we do give a lot, I don't necessarily know we're giving them the same tests over again. I think, the key is, are we using all that data, because they are testing different things that we have to still look at across the board.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, I got one other one. I think I know the answer, but, why is it trigger calculus on this list?
Those are through the college. We don't get to pick those.
That's what I
Did you know it? Was that the right answer?
thought. Oh, that's the right answer. So should we be paying for those textbooks?
That's a loaded question.
I
I don't know.
Part of them, or I don't know. That's probably not that's not
Not this one,
question.
sure.
Other than it comes out of the same, it would come out of the same budget potentially,
Yes.
but.
So trying to understand pricing. We
Yeah,
wouldn't,
and I put together that first sheet, just trying to summarize things.
and we wouldn't need to pay that whole, we wouldn't be, because we wouldn't be purchasing it through 8th grade, correct? So it wouldn't be that price
For,
for the iReady.
I think they're
yes,
taking that
'cause
assessment.
we were looking at the MyPath, the assessment and the intervention that's the added cost for 6 through 8, for 6 years.
So what are you proposing for cost?
The total in the gray down there, the 173.
Okay, because you ran out of packs, so I'm trying to find it on
Oh,
here.
did you not get one? I have one.
You can look at that one.
Well, I got it
I've already
on,
looked at it.
I could share with you.
I've got one right here. I made you one. I just didn't hand it to you. I'm sorry.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was following here. So it's 173, 343, 66.
So these bottom three that include 6 to 8, that's just for the MyPath?
Anybody have any more questions for Megan? Chris? Nicole? Kelly? Jessica, Brian? Okay. If we're gonna adopt this, looks like it's gonna cost the district $173, $343, $66. So I'll need a motion if we're gonna approve this math package.
I'll make a motion to approve what we put together, 173, 342.66.
Okay,
Second.
and Daniel second. All in favor, right hand. 7-0. Okay, the next one is a discussion regarding capital outlay committee.
Yeah, so, the original plan was to create this capital outlay committee, get some community members involved and, start talking about needs of the district, start helping with, what we call the list or, and then see where that goes. Got no interest in that. The names I've gotten from board members have said they are not able to commit that time, so. Need some guidance, feedback from the board if you want me to continue down that road, or if you want to look more of a subcommittee out of this board and add admin and directors and whoever else could be added to that and still do that same work and open it up to public and say, here's what we're doing. And then maybe we can pick up some people that way, but part of my concern is, we're just not moving the needle forward, and I don't want it to be, I probably got a list in my head of people I would put on it, but then it becomes Craig's committee, and I don't want that as well, or either. So
you didn't get any community members
no, I did
that
not.
were interested?
Can we look a little bit longer?
I certainly can.
I would like to see if everybody.
Yeah, like I said, if you guys send me 3 names, I will call them and
Asking how we advertise.
we put it in newsletter, we put it in different things, we can put it on the Facebook, because that's, but I can also kind of draft an email and send it out, kind of begging and saying, here's kind of the vision, be part of this, here's your chance. Because I think we've got a lot of people in our community that would bring a lot to that conversation.
Could we have the grade school share it in their
Yep.
weekly update?
Yep.
Call
like I said, we could, you know, if I don't have anybody by next month, then I would certainly recommend them, you know, to get us in before that August budget deadline to pivot from there.
How many other people?
I would love, you know, you're looking at 9 community members, plus there's about 9 people from the district, and, you know, between admin and Mr. Morrison, Mr. Kirkpatrick, Chris will certainly be on it. We'll see about other directors and how they fit into that puzzle. But, you know, certainly Brad's purchases come out of capital outlay, Chad's purchases come out of capital outlay. Michaela's the only one who isn't funded out of capital outlay, it's its own thing, so. Okay, it sounds like you guys gonna send me some names. If you guys, the sooner the better. If you got some names, or you want to talk to them, and if they do want to know, I mean, the thing is, there's just going to be a couple nights. You know, that's the thing. Or we'll do them during the day. We'll have our ladies make breakfast. We'll do it in the morning. Those kinds of things, and biscuits and gravy days. So
You're thinking 3 times in a year?
I would say between now and budget, we're looking at 3 meetings probably at the most. You know, then I think what direction do we go? As I still think, you know, that discussion of a bond still needs to happen because we're getting closer to our bond falling off, no matter what that is, whether you move forward with that or not. And I think some of that naturally happens through this because we'll see what the needs and wants and those kinds of things are from that group. But you know, Craig's needs and wants are not, you know, necessarily aligned with the rest of the district, and so that's why we would love more people. So, if y'all need all names, or if you want to have them reach out, like I said, it's, you know, we're looking at, you know, at least between now and when we roll the budget out, at least 3 meetings to kind of get us do tours and create a list and kind of talk, you know, how that process works, what we're expecting out of it, and you know, we create this new master list, so to say, of capital projects, needs, wants within our district. Okay, that's all I need.
Any other discussion on it? Okay, we're moving on to executive session. I'll read the motion. I move the board recess to executive session to discuss issues related to non-elected personnel under the exemption of the non-elected personnel under KOMA. The meeting shall resume at
5 minutes?
So-
No, you think you will? 8:23?
23. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? 7-0. Okay, on to number 10, approval of contract and work agreements and transfers. Has everybody had a look? Just, I'll need a motion in a second.
I move that we approve the work check.
Okay, second? Chris? All in favor, right hand?
Well, I'm saying for both of us.
Oh, yeah, you,
Yeah, good call.
Okay,
his wife's in there.
6-1.
If you step out of the room, it doesn't
I
count
was
as
gonna
a
say, I'm
no.
gonna tell it.
He was a hard no, he was a hard no. Arms are crossed and everything.
No, I'm not.
I thought about that one, I read it.
Sorry, I didn't see that. I did.
It's all good. I could have stepped out too.
Okay.
It's fine.
On to the next one, RCEC.
Nothing.
Okay, next
They
one.
did get a new assistant director. I don't know if we talked about that last time, so. Zach Clough.
Yeah, yeah.
Do we have-
Yeah, they did promote, yeah, I forgot.
Rachel
about that.
Furlong,
Yeah, they
right,
promoted
TLC, so.
a lady who's been there for a long time, so.
Do
Yeah,
we
they
ever
filled
actually
that.
find out how much we actually give our CC and how much we actually get from our CC?
I can tell you the number that we pay them, and I can get Christie and send that out. In terms of what we get, are you wanting to know the number of staff? What do you?
Something.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can explain how it's fed, yep.
Is it about 400-some thousand?
Impossible without them.
We pay about $1 million total
Oh, is it?
sped, but we pay, some of it goes back to the state, some of it's flows.
Well, I don't know,
some
it
of
just
it-
like, it just seems
Yeah.
like we give a lot of money there and I don't know.
Also remember, and I remember that SPED funding, you probably see it on Facebook, that SPED is not fully funded in Kansas. SPED in the United States is not fully funded. All of our SPED laws are federal laws, and so when you have federal laws, the feds should cover the bill when you require things. Well, state statute says that, our federal law says that they would cover 92% of the excess cost, which is the extra money that has to go to RCEC or whatever co-op you have, or if you have your own, then you pay all those fed staff. Well, the federal government doesn't meet that 92%. It's more like 60%. And you would think then that bill should then come to the state, and that's what we keep saying, well, you know, the state should be able to fund that. Well, the state says, no, it's a federal issue, so then that falls on us. So, of our general fund, we transfer close to $400,000 every year because of that difference of what we should be getting from the federal government, what then I think the state should pick up because the feds don't cover theirs, but our district picks up because the state doesn't pick up. So that's why it kind of looks like that. That's why we pay so much, because you know, by the letter, SPED is underfunded. I mean, we hear public education's been fully funded, and I truly agree with that. But I look as, and most people do, SPED funding's different because of that mechanism that should be getting almost all of it from the federal government.
We transferred over 400,000?
We usually do, yep.
It's 170, what was it, 170 some?
I can tell you.
And we get, and just like all of our taxes and capital outlay, like Christy has to submit to get payments from the state, and at different times through the year that we have to pay RCEC at those times as well.
It was only 106 this time. A lot of times it's like 170 some.
Okay.
Is that based off of our need?
So
Or
it's SPED spending based on really the adults. The adults are based on what's written in the IEPs. So yes.
So if they're not funding what's written in the IEP, or they're not providing what's written in the IEPs.
There's the, yeah, so there's the, you know, what we call compensatory services. We talked about that, where SPED laws gives you time to make them up.
Right.
Now, if we don't do that, then that's an issue. That's where we've got to sit around the table and figure out, why aren't we following the law? If that's not happening, you know.
So
you know,
they're making it up, not us.
Say that.
Correct?
Say
RCEC is.
correct, yes, that is an RCEC. Anything SPED starts at RCEC, they should be taking care of contacting. If you don't, if you're not hearing those things, reach out to your building administrator, reach out to that teacher. If we're still not getting anywhere, then we're talking to Dr. Kisner, who's the director, you know, the assistant director, and those things. But there is some wiggle room, like if we don't, like say, you know, a lot of times where we see it's a para covering para minutes, and so they might adjust the kid, and then we say, we really saw it during COVID, that those minutes have to still be accounted for. So if they get 45 minutes a day, you take that times 165, that's the number of minutes that we have to cover. If that makes sense. Not always ideal, and the best way we cover them, sometimes just you put more kids, and we've talked about that, into a classroom that can cover by paras, and some of that's their training on our end that they're working on as well through our CC and building as well.
I think also how they bill us as a district is that there's 5 members in the co-op. And depending on how many students there are is what.
In terms of percentage also to our
Yeah,
CC.
because Bueller's the largest one. Hutch used to be big, but they withdrew. I think that was the first year I was on the board.
So there's 5 contributing districts.
Yeah, it's Bueller.
Based on.
All Reno County except
Not the private schools.
yeah, sorry, not the private schools.
So Trinity and Central Christian would not contribute.
But by law, we still have to provide those kids with services.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sorry. Sorry, no, good questions. SPED funding it's a lot of money. You know, part of that issue with the federal government held up their end of the bargain, and it kind of all flows down. Yep, I got a couple things. Just need a couple more names for graduation 8th grade promotion. 8th grade promotion, I have Kelly and Chris. Certainly will take anybody else that wants to sit up on the stage. That is Friday, May 15th
at 6 p.m. and then graduation, and I've got one. Ken has agreed to that, and I will take anybody else. Sunday, May 17th at 2 p.m. If you can let me know over the next week, because Mr. Kirkpatrick, Sunday, yes. Mr. Kirkpatrick and them are chomping at the bit to kind of start, getting things squared away in terms of, if you want to commit now, I would certainly write your name down.
Okay. Anybody?
I can do May 15th for sure.
Okay.
On the middle school.
We can have to be up there.
Think about 17th. I'll let you know.
I can do it.
I can make it happen if needed. On my wife's side of the
If for some reason she plays Friday night, but I really want to be up there.
I think we can have you. Like I said, I would love to have you if all of you were in
Practice
too.
graduating.
Watch from the stand.
If they got it. If those girls, that's fine, if they need to. Chris will do it.
Are you gonna be on
For what?
High school.
the high school,
I certainly can.
or do you want to?
I don't, either way, doesn't matter to me.
You two duke it out.
Go ahead, you already, go ahead, you do. I've done it the last 2 years.
Okay, I mean, yeah.
Chris and Ken, and then Kelly, Chris, and Nicole for middle school.
And I'll let you know on the 17th.
Okay.
Daniel was on it.
You want to do high school too?
I don't need to, but if you got enough people, that's fine. I've got other things to do, but if you needed somebody to do it.
You can put me on high school and I'll just let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, gotcha.
Well,
We don't.
I'll let you guys duke it out.
We're good. All right, and last thing I just want to get out there, the cell phone ban policy, because I think, and I have a feeling, I think that's going to wreck some worlds, good and bad. I'll share my beliefs in terms of that, local control type issue, and 265 of the 284 districts already had some kind of policy. But here we are. I'm excited because I would love to see this, but I don't necessarily know that they went about it the right way, because the law states that a student cannot have access to their phone from bell to bell. Access means not in their locker, that means not in their backpack, that means not on their person, in their pocket. This also covers earbuds, Apple Watches,
Yeah, they're gonna short out.
their own iPad, tablets.
Yeah, how you gonna police it?
So that's the big question. Because we've had a policy before, I think it gets a little bit easier in terms of if a kid pulls it out, it's gotta go to the office, because they shouldn't even have it on them at all. It can't be a, hey, put that away. Discipline-wise, what's that look like? Probably not much different than it really does now. There's detentions that are given. I think we probably get to in-school suspensions when it's a continued thing, because we don't have much else, but we certainly got to get parents involved and those kinds of things. I don't see people getting arrested because they bring cell phones to school or anything like that.
Shucks.
But it's going to fall on us to police that.
Does this apply to staff as well?
That'll be, I think, we talked about that as admin. They didn't feel the need to make a policy, but also there is a need that we have to monitor that better and be mindful. Like I said, I shouldn't walk in the classroom and a teacher never looks up because they're doing something here. But I think it's a tool that teachers, whether it's timers and things like that, so that's what the admin kind of pushback.
There's probably a safety element, probably.
And possibly those kinds of things too, but also having that conversation like, life's gonna be hard for some of our kids. Like, it's gonna be a really big change. Some of our teachers really hold it to it. I think it's a good change to see that, but also I get the safety concerns from parents and being able to have constant communication. Like, if they gotta call home, if they forget their jersey, they're going like I was, you had to go to the office and call. Like, yes, those kinds of things. I can remember high school had a phone out in the hallway that we could use. And so it's going to be a big shift. I'm going to work on sending something and putting it in my newsletter that we've got to partner with our families, because, like I said, we don't want to spend all of our time policing this, because I think what ultimately happens if you don't follow the law, you look at losing it. They'll hold state funding, they'll hold your accreditation, those kinds of things. No one's going to get arrested, but they could impact us that way. And so KSB has given what they would recommend to be their new policy, and then as I talked a little bit downstairs,
the changes that would take place in what would be online activities. When we talk about social media, and I think the policy is actually online activity. And so there's some red line in that, and that would give the board a chance to start that conversation if you want to even add more to that policy next month. But as I said, really bringing it up now. I put it in my update, but you know, they've started having these conversations at the high school and talking to kids what this looks like, and you know, I think there probably will get changed. I would assume the law gets changed next year to where they can have it in their backpack or they can have it in their locker, I think.
So do we allow students to use their own?
Currently we do.
So if they have like an Apple?
We'll not be able to do that anymore.
Oh, they won't?
No.
So they'll all have to use our Chromebooks, okay.
Which we already budget for that. We have them. It's just they still get it and they're responsible for it. So they can never say, oh, I left mine. Well, you have a Chromebook, or mom took that one away from me, kind of stuff. So we still give all of our kids Chromebooks. Just now kids have the option to use a MacBook.
Are there firewalls pretty strict as far as to what websites they?
Yeah, ours are. Now our kids are pretty sharp and can figure out how to get VPNs and IPS addresses from other places and do some of that.
Can they do that on Chrome?
They can, yeah.
Yeah, you use a VPN, you can get in through a Chromebook.
So some of that's policing, the policing of. All of our teachers have the software that they can bring up every Chromebook in their classroom and see what's on their screens and their tabs and utilizing that. But we also can't tie in personal devices to that, so you know that's also would be an issue at times. So.
Well, I tried to pull up the casino site for after prom, just to show the picture of it, and I was in the library and it wouldn't let me. It blocked
I
me.
bet Brad got a bark. You're gonna get it.
Just like
I did.
You're the one.
It was a gambling.
Yeah,
It's like,
Brad got a bark.
You're the one. It's like, it's not even a gambling site. It's a gambling equipment.
No. That's all I have. That, like I said, we'll bring the first read of the policy, more conversations. Some of that, you know, in terms of consequences, what this looks like, building level, will be spelled out in handbooks as well, as opposed to just, you know, policies, you know, written like a policy. One thing I would like to stay away from, and you probably hear some districts are buying the pouches, and then the kid lock them in and they can keep the pouch all day. That's an expense I don't know that we want to endure. Admin is working with their staff like, okay, what's this look like on a day-to-day basis? You know, thinking like if we have 70 or 50 middle school track kids turn in their cell phones at the beginning of the day and they get dismissed at 1:30, how do we keep from disrupting the entire system, right? And those kinds of things. So those things still have to be worked out. No, what it may be as simple as you say, you know, they've got to be turned in an office and we'll, you know, have something for them and lock them up and then they check them out. Like I said, we'll work through all those kinds of things and as we get there. But just really a heads up, you know, as you talk to people, you know, as I said, we don't have a choice. Some people are excited about that. I think we had a policy, and could we always, you know, make sure it's being followed better? Absolutely, as always. And you know, still obtaining some, you know, control of their classroom and how they use them and things like that. But as I said, life's going to change a little bit for some of our kids. Some kids will handle it better than others. Some parents, you know, as I said, we'll cross those different bridges. But that's all I have on that. And the last thing is proms this weekend, so just wish our kids a safe and fun. And then the hard work that, you know, certainly our parents have put into that and after prom. So very appreciative of that. So that's all I got.
Okay, next is board member reports.
No, I just want to say, the Cosmosphere deal the Education Foundation put on Friday night, it sounded like everybody really liked that. There was a lot of people attended. Good, it looks like you had a pretty good turnout, I mean, for the auction too and everything.
We did, yeah, the Cosmosphere, we had they could turn a ticket in, we had like right at 200 tickets, so around 200 people went, and more than, you know, I was kind of anticipating with all that we had going on within our district, and you know, it was a really good turnout. And then the Education Foundation in my 4 years was, I think, the best attended and hottest checkbooks 4 years. So we appreciate that. It was a really good night. We haven't got the final numbers, but you know, turn that money back into going back into the classroom. So we appreciate those that have given their time, energy, dollars, all that into both of those and the foundation. All right.
Just. Daniel,
I'm good.
Chris, Nicole. And you're good. Okay. Board. And she's good. I need a motion.
Oh, sorry. Nicole, you were probably wanting to know this, and I don't know if anybody else is really tracking. First negotiations meeting is 4/22 at 4 o'clock. We'll send notes out. We'll highlight everything talked about. This is the easiest one of the group. It's just explain what's.
If I didn't have to be off for track and softball, it would be different.
Well, if you can be here, in terms of that's an open meeting in terms of anybody that wants to attend. So that's all I got. Thank you guys.
I forgot, May 11th is our next board meeting. Now I'm ready for adjournment. Daniel, Chris, all in favor?